Chapter 546. The young girl's voice was very calm, but it easily stirred the two brothers' hearts. Although they had seen a lot of women over the years, they had never seen such a peerless woman like her before. If they could ride on top of her, it would definitely be very pleasurable. There's a second option, of course. The bearded man licked the corner of his lips. That is to defeat the two of us. However, with just the three of you, do you think you're a match for the two of us? The two girls were very young, but the young girl in white was definitely no older than 15. As for the little boy, there was no need to even think about it. What kind of storm could a 5-year-old do? Oh! Yun Luofeng gently raised her brows and said with a faint smile, "Then I choose the second option." The two brothers were stunned for a moment, but before they could return to their senses, the young girl's body suddenly passed by them. The moment her fine black hair fluttered in the wind, a faint fragrance wafted over. Then, hot blood gushed out of their arms like a fountain. It was a spectacular sight. Ah! The bearded man screamed and clutched his bleeding arm tightly. His face was deathly pale. His brother was not much better off. His delicate face was devoid of color as blood continuously flowed down his arm. Soon, it converged into a river on the ground. "Who are you?" He gritted his teeth and asked coldly. Yun Luofeng raised her brows and smiled. "Someone who will turn Yellow Spring City upside down." Her words were very arrogant. What she meant was that because of her arrival, Yellow Spring City would undergo earth-shattering changes. The delicate man's expression changed. After a long while, he choked out a few words. "You're too arrogant." Compared to the wretched bearded man, this man was more composed. However, his pale face clearly showed his disdain. Yellow Spring City is a place of great power. There are countless experts. You alone do not have the ability to turn Yellow Spring City upside down for you. Little brother, why are we wasting our breath on this woman? She only managed to injure us with a sneak attack. The bearded man gritted his teeth. Let's attack together and take this woman down. Tisk tiske. Just as the bearded man finished speaking, mocking laughter suddenly sounded from the side. Lin Ruobai raised his head proudly, his eyes shining with confidence. You still want to capture my master? To deal with people like you, my master doesn't even need to do anything. I can deal with them on her behalf. Arrogant. The bearded man sneered and quickly rushed towards Lin Ruobai. Suddenly, a large blade appeared in his hand and he swung it down, stirring up a hurricane around him. Bang! The broadsword fell to the ground and dust flew everywhere. But before the bearded man could heave a sigh of relief, his whole body stiffened. Amidst the flying dust, Lin Ruobai's hand tightly grasped the blade of the burly man. Her sleeves fluttered in the light wind, revealing a fair and tender arm. A trace of blood flowed down her little hand, but she didn't notice it at all. Her smile was like a brilliant flower, extremely gorgeous. I've already said that I don't need my master to deal with people like you. I alone am enough. To Lin Ruobai, asking Yun Luofeng to deal with these people was like dirtying her hands. As her disciple, she had to deal with these small problems for her master. Furthermore, these people had dared to humiliate her master. Just this alone was enough to make her not forgive them. Chapter 547. The stubbled man's gaze slowly shifted to Xiaobai's small hand that was tightly gripping the blade. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes. He swallowed hard and raised his head to look at the adorable girl in front of him. "You." The stubbled man had just finished speaking when Lin Ruobai's foot flew up and landed a vicious kick on his chest, sending him flying. "Master, I finally understand why you like to kick people." Lin Ruobai's smile was brighter than the sun. "It turns out that it feels so good to kick people. No, I'm already addicted to this feeling. I need to kick a few more times." With that, Lin Ruobai leaped up and rushed in front of the stubbled man. What followed next was a one-sided trampling. Little Emo stared blankly at the incomparably ferocious Lin Ruobai and swallowed in horror. He subconsciously shrank his body behind Yun Luofeng and said weakly, "Master, I want to return to the Divine Grimoire space." During this period of time, he would return to the Divine Grimoire space at night and appear during the day. Thus, he did not arouse Lin Ruobai's suspicions. Now, To prevent himself from being tortured by this cruel woman, he swore that he would never step out of the divine grimoire space. Yun Luofeng glanced at him. Didn't you say that you didn't want to return to the divine grimoire space? I don't care. I'll return to the divine grimoire space now. Before this woman leaves, I won't appear. Little Mo glared at Lin Ruobai fiercely. Then, while Yun Luofeng was not paying attention, he quickly flashed into the divine grimoire space. He planned to disappear for a period of time. It would be best if Lin Ruobai forgot about his existence. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Lin Ruobai's courage. Since Lin Ruobai had already decided to marry him, how could she forget about him? Heroine, spare me. I had eyes but failed to recognize you. Please spare me? Just as Yun Luofeng was deep in thought, the stubbled man's trembling voice came from the front. Yun Luofeng looked over and immediately saw that the fierce-looking man had already been stepped under Lin Ruobai's foot. Her slightly raised eyebrows were full of arrogance as she glanced disdainfully at the bruised man under her foot. How did you humiliate my master just now? Lin Ruobai smiled coldly. Do you want to let it go just like that? However, I am willing to give you a chance. If you cut off your tongue, I'll spare your dog life. The bearded man's expression suddenly changed. Stupid girl, don't push your luck, you. Bang. Before he could finish speaking, Lin Ruobai's foot suddenly landed on his face, blocking his voice. He could only let out a soft whimper. Xiaobai, Yun Luofeng stopped Lin Ruobai's actions and slowly walked towards the bearded man. Take me to see your boss. Perhaps because of Yun Luofeng's words, Lin Ruobai moved his foot away, giving the big man a chance to speak. There was an obvious shoe print on his face, and his mouth was red and swollen. It was obvious how much force Lin Ruobai had used. Our boss isn't someone you can meet just because you want to. After all, even if he begged for mercy, these people would not let him go. Therefore, the bearded man's voice became firm again. However, the fear in his eyes did not decrease. Instead, it increased. Really? Yun Luofeng's lips curved into an evil smile. Her smile was like that of a demon from hell, as if it could make you fall into an endless hell. Chapter 548. Xiaobai, the girl paused, then continued, this man is too obscene. As a punishment, make him a eunuch. Hearing this, the bearded man's face turned pale. He hurriedly got up from the ground and retreated. Don't come over or else. Or else what? The girl narrowed her eyes and smiled evilly. Are you going to shout for help? Don't worry, even if you shout until your throat breaks, no one will come to save you. Looking at the evil smile on Yun Luofeng's face and Lin Ruobai, who was walking over eagerly, the bearded man finally felt panic. As a man, if he really became a eunuch, how would he have the face to continue living? We'll bring you to see the boss. At this moment, the handsome man suddenly spoke. Brother! The bearded man's expression suddenly changed. If the boss finds out that we brought a stranger to see him, he'll definitely be furious. There's nothing we can do even if we don't agree. The handsome man shook his head. Even if we don't agree, she'll think of other ways to see the boss. If that's the case, why don't we bring him? If the boss blames us, I'll take responsibility. The bearded man didn't say anything else, but his clenched fists showed the anger in his heart. Finally, he took a deep breath, his red and swollen cheeks looking somewhat hideous. Our boss isn't someone you can provoke. Since you want to die so badly, I'll fulfill your wish. After saying this, he glared at Yun Luofeng, then turned and stepped through the gates of Yellow Spring City. In Yellow Spring City, various forces intersected. The force that Yun Luofeng and the others were going to was the Big Dipper Gang, which was ranked 11th in Yellow Spring City. Even though it was ranked 11th, the Big Dipper Gang's strength was not to be underestimated. It was said that the Big Dipper Gang had already broken through to the Celestial Spirit stage, so one could imagine how powerful the top 10 forces were. At this moment, in the Sky Marshal Pavilion not far from the Big Dipper Gang, an old man was sitting on a high seat, elegantly drinking tea. However, at this moment, a servant outside the door hurriedly walked in and respectfully cupped his fists. Master, a man who calls himself Tianyu is here to visit. Tianyu? The old man was startled and frowned. What is he doing here? I have already said this before. I don't wish to have any contact with the Tian family. I didn't see anyone from the Tian family. The manservant carefully glanced at the impatient old man and said, Clan head, young Master Tian, you also asked me to bring a message to clan head. He said, the Tian family has been exterminated. But the old man's palm trembled, and the teacup fell from his hand, landing on the ground and shattering into pieces. Then he suddenly stood up and clenched his fists tightly. The veins on his forehead bulged. What did you say? The Tian family was exterminated? Quick, let Tianyu in. I want to know what happened. Since a few decades ago, when his daughter didn't listen to his advice and insisted on marrying someone from the Tian family, he had cut off all contact with his daughter. Even his grandson, Tianyu, was not liked by him. In fact, he hadn't even asked about them for many years. However, he never expected that in the end, the Tian family would be annihilated. The old man's body went limp and he fell on the chair. He was in so much pain that he couldn't help but grip the corner of his clothes tightly. Chapter 549. Not long after, a handsome young man slowly walked out from the great hall. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the man's body, causing his silhouette to lengthen. Perhaps it was because he had heard the grievous news of the Tian family, but Tianyu's eyes were dark and bloodshot. Only when he saw the old man sitting in the great hall did his expressions soften a little. His thin lips parted and he slowly said, Grandfather, now, you are the only relative I have left. Boom. Like a bolt from the blue, the old man was stunned. After a long while, he regained his senses and asked with a pale face, You mean your mother, she's dead, and the entire Tian family has been destroyed. Tianyu never thought that so many things would happen in the half a month that he had left the Tian family. When he heard the grievous news, he did not believe it. However, he did not dare to return to the Tian family, afraid that he would also be killed. Therefore, as he inquired about the truth of the matter, he went to Yellow Spring City to seek refuge with his grandfather. Who was it? The old man slammed the table in half with one hand. His wrinkled face gradually became ferocious. Tell me, who killed your mother? I will make them pay 100-fold. Tianyu's eyes were filled with a complicated look, but it was more of a bone-piercing hatred. It was Yun Luofeng and Xianxia. Thinking of that peerlessly beautiful girl, Tianyu's fists clenched tightly. His nails dug deep into his palms, causing faint traces of blood to appear. What's the reason? The old man regained his composure after his anger subsided. He asked with a cold expression. Because Yun Luofeng's maidservant, Zhong Ling'er, was the daughter of a branch family member of the Yun family. Yun Luofeng wanted to marry Zhong Ling, to one of his guards, but Zhong Ling, rejected him. In order to protect his daughter, that member of the Tian family secretly took Zhong Ling, away to protect her. This angered Yun Luofeng. He joined forces with the traitor of the Tian family, Xianxia, to kill his way into the Tian family and annihilated all my family members. Tianyu was in the Tian family's huge dye vat, so how could he be clean? Therefore, he could easily come up with this kind of backstabbing lie. Plus, on that day, other than Yun Luofeng, there were only members of the Tian family. The world only knew that the Tian family was destroyed. No one knew why. Even if the people from the Sky Marshal Pavilion went to investigate, they would not be able to find anything. More importantly, in order to be safe, he had already used the portion of the Tian family's power that he had taken with him that day to fabricate a rumor, making Yun Luofeng an existence that was condemned by thousands of people. What a Yun Luofeng, what a world's edge. The old man was so angry that he laughed, and the killing intent in his eyes became even thicker. These two people not only forced an innocent girl to become a prostitute, but also forced a side branch of the royal family to marry her guard. He even did such a heinous thing. Tianyu, don't worry. Grandfather will avenge your mother. Let these people die without a burial ground. He only mentioned revenge for his mother and never mentioned the Tian family. Obviously, he still hasn't acknowledged the existence of the Tian family. However, as long as he could kill Yun Luofeng and Xianxia, that was enough. Someone, bring young master to rest. The old man's expression was bone-chilling, but when he looked at Tianyu, he softened a bit. Tianyu, since the Tian family no longer exists, Then from today onwards, you are a member of the Tang family. Later, you will change your name to Tang Tianyu. Yes, grandfather. Tang Tianyu lowered his head and said respectfully. Chapter 550. Good child. Tang Ran sighed softly and patted Tang Tianyu's shoulder. It's been hard on you these days. Live well in the Tang family from now on. I won't mistreat you. This child was a good seedling. If he was properly nurtured, he would definitely thrive in Yellow Spring City in the future. It was a pity that he was still angry at his daughter and didn't like this grandson of his. That was why he didn't nurture him. Grandfather, I won't let you down. Tang Tianyu raised his head with a determined look. One day, he would kill Yun Luofeng and Xianxia with his own hands. And he would replace the Sky Martial Pavilion in his grandfather's hands. After the servant brought Tang Tianyu away, the old man's face darkened and he said coldly, Tanging, go and find out the truth behind the Tian family's destruction. Suddenly, a black figure landed in front of Tang Ran and asked in a low voice, Master, you don't believe young Master Tianyu's words? Tang Ying laughed coldly. Do you think I don't know what the Tian family is like? Go and find out the truth immediately. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, the devil rises 10. Before he could tell the lie, Tang Tianyu had already spread the rumor across the mainland. Rumors would never disappear no matter how hard they tried. Therefore, the truth that Tang Ying found out would be exactly the same as Tang Tianyu's, who asked there to be no extra people on the mountain that day. And the reason why they knew that Yun Luofeng and Xianxia killed the Tian family members was because they were the only ones who entered the highest level of Sky Mountain that day. As long as someone remembered their appearance and drew it on paper and spread it, someone would recognize them. Yun Luofeng was an exception. Too many people had seen him before. As for Xianxia, he had treated many patients. Anyone who had been treated by him would remember his appearance. Master, Tang Ying paused, then continued, what should we do with Yun Luofeng and Xianxia? Hearing this, a cold, murderous intent flashed across Tang Ran's eyes. Regardless of whether Tianyu is telling the truth or not, these two deserve to die. Immediately send an order to find their whereabouts. Once you find them, kill them without mercy. Tang Ying cupped his fists. After he responded, his figure disappeared without a trace like a gust of wind. Tang Ran probably never imagined that the enemy who destroyed the Tian family was now in Huangquan City. If he went outside to look for Yun Luofeng, it would be impossible to find him. At this time, outside the Big Dipper Gang's residence, the guard couldn't help but whistle when he saw the bearded man walk in with two young girls. Pang Fei, Pang Qingren, you two brothers are quite lucky to have obtained such exquisite beauties this time. The corner of Pang Fei's mouth twitched when he heard the banter from his gang members. His face was filled with embarrassment. Oh right, Pang Fei, what happened to your face? Who beat you up like this? This. Pang Fei laughed awkwardly. I accidentally fell. This has nothing to do with you guys. I'm going to look for boss. The guard's gaze was a little suspicious. How could he fall to such a state? He must have been beaten up by someone but was too embarrassed to say it out loud. While he was hesitating, the Pang brothers had already brought Yun Luofeng and Xianxia into the gang. Our boss should be in closed-door cultivation. I'll bring you to see him now. Pang Qingren glanced at Yun Luofeng and said in a low voice. Chapter 551. A middle-aged man sat upright on a mat in a quiet secret room, resting with his eyes closed. Faint spiritual energy swirled around his body, then was absorbed into his body through the opening and closing of his pores. However, as soon as the spiritual energy entered his body, his expression changed drastically, as if thousands of ants were burrowing into his body. It's still no good. Large droplets of sweat rolled down his face. He slowly opened his eyes and smashed his fists fiercely on the ground as he said hatefully, "Damn it! Am I never going to be able to absorb spiritual energy for the rest of my life? I can only remain as a low-level celestial spirit warrior?" Thump, thump, thump. 3 knocks rang out from outside the secret room, causing the middle-aged man to immediately return to his senses. He gradually recovered his composure and said coldly, "Come in." No matter what, he could not let the fact that he could not cultivate spread. Otherwise, not only would it cause panic among the gang members, He would not even be able to keep his position as the 11th disciple. However, it had been almost 6 years since he broke through to the Celestial Spirit Warrior. If he still did not break through, it would definitely raise suspicion. When that time comes, everyone would know that he could not cultivate. The door to the secret room was pushed open, and Pang Fei and his brother walked in first. However, the middle-aged man immediately saw 2 young girls following closely behind them. The one in front of the 2 young girls was definitely the devastatingly beautiful young girl in white. She had a lazy smile on her face, and her aura was confident and ostentatious. Pang Fei, Pang Qingran. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically, and he scolded coldly, "Who allowed you to bring outsiders into the gang? And why did you bring them to me?" Pang Fei was so frightened that he did not dare to speak when he saw his boss's anger. His entire body trembled. On the other hand, Pang Qingran glanced at her brother and walked up to the middle-aged man. She said respectfully, "Boss, these 2 girls said that they wanted to see you, so I boldly brought them here. Please forgive me, boss." The middle-aged man snorted coldly and turned his cold gaze towards Yun Luofeng. "I don't know who you are, nor do I know why you've come to see me, but this isn't a place where you can come. Leave immediately." Yun Luofeng crossed his arms in front of his chest and lazily leaned on the doorsill. He smiled evilly at the middle-aged man with an ashen face. "I naturally have my reasons for coming here." She paused for a moment before continuing. "I heard that only the top 10 forces in Yellow Spring City have the right to enter the other shore mountain. Because this city was named Yellow Spring, the mountain within Yellow Spring City was called Permitha Mountain. Because the amount of medicinal materials produced on the mountain was limited, Nether Spring City had an unspoken rule. Only those that were ranked in the top 10 had the qualifications to step foot into Permitha Mountain. Being able to enter the other shore mountain became a symbol of Yellow Spring City's strength. This was why Yun Luofeng had sought out the Big Dipper gang. "What do you mean?" The middle-aged man's eyes darkened as he asked sternly. "My intention is very simple." Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes slightly, the evil smile on his face becoming more pronounced. "That is, to replace your position." Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted from the middle-aged man's body. He rose from the ground and said angrily, "Little girl, do you know what you're saying? Replace me? I'd like to see if you have the ability to do so." After saying these words, he no longer hesitated. He quickly made his move. Like a sharp sword, he quickly arrived in front of Yun Luofeng. Chapter 552. The instant he appeared in front of Yun Luofeng, a heavy blow slammed into his soul, causing him to tremble. Immediately after, the young girl's figure appeared behind him without him noticing. She kicked his butt, sending him flying into the wall. The Pang brothers had been waiting to see Yun Luofeng make a fool of himself. In their opinion, their boss was already a celestial spirit practitioner. How could Yun Luofeng possibly contend against him? However, they never expected that the girl would use just one kick to force their boss into the wall like a gecko. He didn't even have a chance to resist. The 2 brothers were stunned. Their pale faces were filled with shock as they stared at Yun Luofeng. They were so shocked that they couldn't even speak. The girl raised her eyebrows and looked at the middle-aged man who was stuck to the wall. She smiled arrogantly. "Do you think I have the strength to replace you now?" The middle-aged man slowly slid down from the wall. He clutched his butt tightly and turned to glare at Yun Luofeng. "Since you want to go to the other shore mountain, you should find a faction in the top 10. My Big Dipper gang is ranked 11th. I'm afraid it won't do as you wish." Yun Luofeng's lips curled up slightly. "I'm naturally lazy and don't want to find other factions. However, your Big Dipper gang just happened to come knocking on my door, so I can only look for you. As for the top 10, Yun Luofeng paused for a moment, then smiled confidently. "That's not a difficult task. In other words, as long as she took over the Big Dipper gang, it wouldn't be a problem for her to rank in the top 10. Hee hee." The middle-aged man laughed coldly. "Even if you defeat me, it won't be easy for you to lead the Big Dipper gang into the top 10. Young man, don't be too confident. Otherwise, you'll suffer sooner or later." Yun Luofeng turned to the middle-aged man with an evil smile. Whether or not I can lead the Big Dipper gang into the top 10 is not something you should be concerned about. I'll give you two choices now. Let me destroy the Big Dipper gang, or submit to me. Die or submit. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. He clenched his fists tightly. The Pang brothers didn't expect Yun Luofeng's ambition to be so great. Their expressions became extremely ugly, and they regretted bringing him to see their boss. Little girl, don't you think you're going too far? The middle-aged man suppressed his anger and said sternly, the moment you open your mouth, you want the Big Dipper gang to submit to you? How are such actions any different from bandits? In Yellow Spring City, strength is everything. Here, the fist is the law. The destruction of a faction is a common occurrence. The smile in Yun Luofeng's eyes deepened. So, there's nothing wrong with me destroying your Big Dipper gang. The middle-aged man was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He took a deep breath and chose to remain silent, not saying a word. 1. Yun Luofeng saw that the middle-aged man didn't answer her, so she casually began to count. 2, 3. Her voice was demonic and moving, but it brought an extremely powerful pressure to the middle-aged man. That pressure was like a huge mountain, and it broke the last string in his mind. I agree. As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have lost all his strength, and his entire body collapsed. Since he'd come to Nether Spring City, he wasn't afraid of death, but he couldn't bear to see the foundation he'd built be destroyed. All right. Yun Luofeng finally smiled. Her smile was as beautiful as ever, so beautiful that one could not open their eyes. Since you've agreed, then from now on, your position belongs to me. Chapter 553. The middle-aged man's body slumped to the ground. He did not know if his decision was good or bad. He only hoped that this young lady would not destroy the entire Big Dipper gang. Many years later, when the middle-aged man recalled the scene, he realized how lucky he was. If it was not for this young lady's domineering behavior, the Big Dipper gang would still be in Netherworld City. It would not have become a powerful force that would unify Netherworld in the future. In Yellow Spring City, there would basically be a topic of conversation every single day. For example, it was the destruction of a force or the rise of a new force. Everyone was already used to it. However, today, the entire Netherworld City was shaken by a piece of news. It was said that the Big Dipper gang had a change of ownership, and the person who took over was a young lady. Many people were guessing the relationship between this young lady and the leader of the Big Dipper gang, Murong Bei. Why did Murong Bei hand the Big Dipper gang to her? Could she be Murong Bei's illegitimate daughter? Or his lover? Otherwise, Murong Bei would not hand over the gang to a stranger so easily. Of course, everyone believed that it was a lover. According to the people who saw the young lady, she was a beauty that could topple a nation. Even the most beautiful woman in Netherworld City could not compare to her. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Murong Bei could not give birth to such a beautiful daughter. Therefore, this young lady must have bewitched Murong Bei with her beauty, causing him to hand over the gang in a daze. At that moment, in the Sky Marshal Pavilion's main hall, Tang Ran listened to his subordinate's report. He fell into deep thought. The Big Dipper gang has been handed over to a young lady? Do you know where she came from? Pavilion Master, I've already sent people to find out more about that young lady. We haven't gotten any accurate information yet. Tang Ran thought for a while and said, let's not care about the Big Dipper gang for now. No matter what, the Big Dipper gang can't do anything anymore. Let's prepare for the upcoming auction. No matter what, I must get my hands on one of the auction items. Let Tianyu bring some people there. I want to see what he's capable of. Yes, Pavilion Master. The guard cupped his fists and left quietly. He stared at the direction where the guard disappeared with a solemn look. The Big Dipper gang? A teenage girl? It seems like the Big Dipper gang is getting weaker and weaker. Perhaps it won't be long before it disappears in the long river of history. As Tang Ran sent people to investigate Yun Luofeng's whereabouts, all the factions in Yellow Spring City were secretly observing the Big Dipper gang. After all, the Big Dipper gang had once been in the limelight a few years ago. However, after the death of the previous gang leader, it had fallen into decline. Now, his position in Yellow Spring City had plummeted to the 11th position. In a picturesque mansion, a man was sitting under a peach blossom tree, playing the zither with his bare hands. His snow-white hair fluttered in the wind, setting off his snow-white skin, making him look incomparably handsome. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind, and the beautiful sound of the zither flowed like a clear spring, causing one's mood to become extremely tranquil. Patriarch. A beautiful woman in red walked in front of the white-haired man, hugged her sword, and said, "I've already heard that the new girl from the Big Dipper gang is called Yun Luofeng." Ding. The man's fingertips brushed past Xianxia, producing a crisp sound. Then his movement stopped. Chapter 554. Yun Luofeng. The man's voice was beautiful and pleasant, like a gentle breeze caressing one's heart. He raised his head gently. In that instant, the cherry blossoms in the courtyard paled in comparison to the man's face. He was so beautiful that it made one forget to breathe, as if he was the most moving color in the world. Xianxia mentioned this name in his letter not long ago. He also said that this girl is the only person who can cure my illness. He chuckled. That smile bloomed under the cherry blossom tree, so beautiful that one could not look away. The beautiful woman stared at the man in a daze, her face slightly flushed. Even though she had been by the family leader's side for so many years, she could not ignore his beauty. Perhaps, no one in the entire world was more beautiful than the family leader. Family leader, should I invite her to the Chen residence? The beautiful woman finally regained her senses and asked respectfully with cupped fists. It's fine. The man shook his head. I need to observe for a while. Junhua, I will be attending the auction in a few days. Go and prepare. Yes, family leader. The beautiful woman responded respectfully, but there was a hint of pity in her eyes. Ever since the old family leader and his wife had been killed, the family leader's hair had turned white overnight. However, he still had to stand up and preside over the entire Chen family. If not for the family leader, the Chen family would have been devoured by those ruthless people long ago. However, good times did not last long. The family leader had already contracted an incurable disease. He had visited many famous doctors but could not cure him. Now that he had such an opportunity, he would not give it up so easily. As the largest trading venue in Yellow Spring City, the day of the auction was unprecedentedly lively. Almost every family had sent someone to attend. For the sake of fairness, the seats were arranged according to the ranking of each family. Thus, Yun Luofeng, who had become the new leader of the Big Dipper gang, coincidentally met the Sky Marshal Pavilion, who was ranked 10th, at the auction. Tianyu immediately saw Yun Luofeng, who was sitting in the Big Dipper gang's territory. Her expression darkened. I never thought that I would see you here. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up and he retorted sarcastically, same here. No wonder Tianyi said that he could not find Tianyu. So Tianyu had come to a place like Yellow Spring City. If she hadn't stepped into Yellow Spring City, she wouldn't have expected Tianyu to be here. Cousin Tianyu, who is she? A delicate voice rang out from beside Tianyu. Then, a young girl dressed in a light yellow dress slowly walked over. Her disdainful gaze swept towards Yun Luofeng, who was seated. Tianyu's face darkened. She is the Yun Luofeng that our Sky Marshal Pavilion has been searching for. Yun Luofeng? The girl in the yellow dress was a little surprised. Soon after, she covered her mouth and giggled. So you're Yun Luofeng, the one who forced a girl into prostitution. I heard that you are extremely vicious. You already have a fiancé, yet you still seduce other men. Not only that, but you also seduced other men and kept pestering your fiancé. You even forbade other women from getting close to him. The young girl paused, and the mocking smile on her lips deepened. How can a person like you have the nerve to live in this world? If I were you, I would have killed myself. Of course, these words were all instilled into her by Tianyu during this period of time. She didn't investigate whether it was true or not. After all, she believed that Tianyu wouldn't have the guts to lie to her. Lin Ruabai stood up abruptly and placed his hands on his hips. He glared angrily at the girl in the yellow dress. You're talking about yourself, aren't you? One look at you and I can tell that you're a lowly person. Tell me honestly, Is this man called Tian Yu dissatisfying your desires? Chapter 555. Her last sentence caused the expressions of the two people present to change drastically. Tian Yu's expression turned ashen as she said coldly, Yun Luofeng, control your people. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Cousin Tang Yu and I were intimate. How could we have that kind of relationship? Compared to Tian Yu's verbal warning, Tang Yu was so angry that she wanted to tear Lin Ruobai's mouth apart. She wanted to see if she still dared to speak carelessly in the future. I'm just stating the truth. Lin Ruobai pursed her lips. She bit me as soon as she arrived. If that's not because she's not satisfied, then what is it? If you can't satisfy her, I don't mind finding her hundreds of men. Stupid girl. Tang Yu charged forward furiously and raised her hand to slap Lin Ruobai. If you say another word, I'll kill you today. Slap. The crisp sound of a slap suddenly rang out, silencing the entire auction hall. Everyone's gaze turned towards Yun Luofeng and the others in unison. Their eyes were filled with anticipation for a good show. All they saw was Lin Ruobai grabbing Tang Yu's wrist tightly with one hand and slapping her face with the other. Her slightly raised brows were filled with arrogance as she looked down at Tang Yu condescendingly. I've already said it. So what? You're the only one allowed to insult my master, but I can't retaliate? In Lin Ruobai's heart, her master was the most important person after her father. How could she allow anyone to insult her? Tang Yu trembled in anger and her face turned slightly pale. Everything I've said is the truth. You're slandering me. Cousin Tian Yu knows Yun Luofeng's character the best. If I'm not wrong, she's the new leader of the Big Dipper gang. I even heard that she climbed into Murong Bei's bed for the position of leader. Lin Ruobai's gaze turned cold. She was about to slap Tang Yu again when a strong hand reached out from the side and grabbed her arm tightly. Tian Yu looked at Yun Luofeng with a steely expression and said coldly, Yun Luofeng, don't go too far. First, you forced an innocent girl into prostitution. Then, you destroyed my Tian family. Now, you're treating my cousin like this. Are you done? Yun Luofeng glanced at Tian Yu's hand, which was tightly gripping Lin Ruobai's hand, and coldly said two words, let go. I won't let go of her. What can you do to me? This was Yellow Spring City, not Heaven Mountain. In this place, although the Sky Marshal Pavilion was only one rank higher than the Big Dipper gang, the difference was like heaven and earth. More importantly, Tian Yu wasn't here and Yun Xiao wasn't here as well. No one could protect her. Unfortunately, the current Tian Yu still believed that the destruction of the Tian family was related to Tianya. Yun Luofeng only played a supporting role. If she could see the scene of Yun Luofeng single-handedly challenging all the experts of the Tian family, perhaps he wouldn't have such an arrogant thought. Are you sure you don't want to? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and asked again. Tian Yu snorted coldly, no. Just as he finished speaking, Yun Luofeng quickly pulled out his sword. He didn't even give him a chance to react. He slashed down from the sky. There was a squelching sound, and blood sprayed everywhere. A severed arm rolled down to the ground. Tian Yu's voice was incomparably mournful, like a ghost wailing and a wolf howling. He knew from the beginning that Yun Luofeng's current strength had surpassed his. However, he never thought that his opponent would have the guts to directly cut off his arm during the auction. Chapter 556. I've already given you 2 chances. Yun Luofeng sheathed her blood-stained sword and sat down on the Big Dipper organization's seat expressionlessly. From the beginning, her eyes were calm, so calm that it was as if nothing had happened. Tang Yu was stunned for a moment before she suddenly snapped out of her daze. She screamed, "Murder!" In an instant, an old man walked out of the auction hall. The old man muttered impatiently as he walked, "What's going on? Why are you screaming here? If you keep this up, Suddenly, the voice disappeared from the old man's throat. He stared in shock at Tang Tianyu, who was lying in a pool of blood, and swallowed hard. What's going on? Elder Yen, Tang Yu glared at Yun Luofeng. This woman injured my cousin in your auction hall. Take her away now. Elder Yen hesitated and turned to Yun Luofeng. Miss, What did this gentleman from the Sky Martial Court do wrong for you to be so merciless? The old man spoke politely, so Yun Luofeng did not hesitate to reply. He's too lecherous. Not only did he molest my disciple, but he also grabbed her hand and refused to let go. I had no choice but to chop off his arm in order to make him let go. Hearing this, the corners of the crowd's mouths twitched violently. It was her disciple who had arrogantly bent down to teach Tang Yu a lesson. Tang Tianyu had only grabbed her to protect Tang Yu. Who would have known that from this young girl's mouth, Tang Tianyu was too lecherous and had molested her disciple? Elder Yen could not help but facepalm. Just because the other party had grabbed her disciple's arm, she had directly chopped off his arm? One should not be so domineering. Ahem, Elder Yen coughed dryly and glanced at Tang Yu. Since it was the Sky Martial Court's member who was in the wrong first and molested someone else's disciple, you deserve it. Tang Yu, don't forget the rules of Netherworld City. Outsiders cannot interfere in a battle between two forces. In other words, even if Yun Luofeng killed Tang Tianyu, the auction hall would not interfere. Yun Luofeng looked at Elder Yen with some surprise. He stroked his chin and pondered. Logically speaking, chopping off Tang Tianyu's arm at the auction was equivalent to not putting the auction house in her eyes. However, looking at Elder Yan's expression, it seemed like he didn't care about her actions at all. This was too abnormal. However, even if the auction house were to pursue the matter, she would still do the same. Elder Yan. Tang Yu saw that Elder Yen had misunderstood and hurriedly explained, "Don't listen to this woman's nonsense. Cousin Tianyu didn't molest her disciple. It was her disciple who attacked me first. Enough." Elder Yan's face changed and he shouted, "If you say another word, I'll kick you out of the auction house. You will never be allowed to enter." Among all the forces in the Netherworld City, the magnificent Sky Auction House was ranked 5th. It was not an existence that the Sky Martial Pavilion could compete with. Therefore, Tang Yu had no choice but to swallow her anger. Seeing that Tang Yu was about to leave with Tang Tianyu, Yun Luofeng suddenly stopped her in her tracks. "What else do you want?" Tang Yu turned around and said impatiently, "Just now, someone framed me for forcing a girl into prostitution." Yun Luofeng curled the corner of his lips and smiled wickedly, "And I naturally don't like being slandered. Therefore, I must make this accusation true." Chapter 557. Tang Yu's expression changed when she saw the girl's devilish smile. She could not help but take 2 steps back. "Yun Luofeng, what do you want?" She bit her lip and asked with a livid expression. Yun Luofeng's posture was languid. His arms were resting on the back of his chair. When he heard Tang Yu's voice, he raised his eyebrows and smiled in a way that made one's hair stand on end. "You say that I forced a girl to become a prostitute? Then I shall grant your wish. Xiao Bai, go and find out where the most famous brothel in Yellow Spring City is." The girl's lips curled. "I believe that the young mistress of the Sky Martial Court can be sold for a good price." The entire auction hall fell silent at Yun Luofeng's words. Elder Yen was also shocked by Yun Luofeng's words. He opened his mouth in shock. He did not expect her to say something like that so naturally. "Since you claim that I forced a girl to become a prostitute, what's wrong with me making this accusation true?" "Yun Luofeng, you've gone too far." Tang Yu's body trembled in anger as she pointed at Yun Luofeng. If looks could kill, Yun Luofeng would have been dismembered by her long ago. "Gone too far?" Yun Luofeng looked down at Tang Yu. "Am I bullying people?" She was not bullying people. How was this going too far? Tang Yu's face turned from green to white, then from white to green. It was as if dye was being applied to her face. Not long after, it turned into a different color. She was so angry that she could not speak. All she could do was glare at Yun Luofeng viciously. "Miss," Elder Yen glanced at Tang Yu, then turned his gaze to Yun Luofeng. He smiled and said, "I wonder if you can give me some face? Let Tang Yu go for now? If you want to deal with her, you can issue a challenge to the Sky Martial Court. That way, we can settle our differences." If Elder Yen had been protecting the Sky Martial Court from the start, Yun Luofeng would not have given him any face. However, because of Elder Yan's protection, Yun Luofeng nodded in agreement. "I can give you face and stop causing trouble at the auction. However, the Sky Martial Court will disappear very soon. Elder Yen smiled gratefully. He knew that even if Yun Luofeng didn't give him face, he wouldn't be able to say anything. After all, this girl was someone that the Lord wanted to protect. However, he really did not want to delay the start of the auction because of these people from the Sky Martial Court. Hence, he was thick-skinned enough to ask for this favor. Miss Yun is indeed open-minded. However, the auction is about to begin. Everyone, please take your seats. Elder Yen laughed out loud. From the beginning until the end, he did not even look at Tang Yu and the others. It was as if he had completely ignored their existence. Tang Yu glared fiercely at Yun Luofeng and hurriedly ordered the disciples of the Sky Martial Court to carry Tang Tianyu away in a hurry. However, because Tang Ran did not want to give up on the auction, he had sent people to participate. Because of Tang Ran's previous instructions, this person did not say anything to provoke Yun Luofeng. Instead, he obediently sat to the side. At this moment, in the back hall of the Sky Martial Pavilion, Tang Tianyu was lying on the bed with a pale face. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead and he groaned in pain. His tightly furrowed eyebrows revealed his pain. "Grandfather," Tang Yu said angrily, "that Yun Luofeng has gone too far. He has no respect for the people of the Sky Martial Court. Furthermore, my cousin had his hand cut off by Yun Luofeng to protect me." Chapter 558. Tang Ran stared expressionlessly at Tang Tianyu, who was lying on the bed. He clenched his fists. Even though he did not like this grandson, his daughter had been killed. This grandson was the only descendant she had left for him. How could he not be angry now that he was injured so badly? Yun Luofeng. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. "If I don't cut you into pieces, I won't be able to quell my anger." Grandpa cousin, Tang Yu's eyes were filled with guilt. If he had not protected her, Tang Tianyu would not have been injured so badly. Even though I don't have the ability to regrow an arm, I have a way to attach someone else's arm to Tianyu's body. Tang Ran narrowed his eyes. Since it was Yun Luofeng who caused him to be so miserable, then this arm should be taken from Yun Luofeng. Tang Yu was overjoyed. As long as Grandpa took action, Yun Luofeng would not be able to do anything. "Oh yes, Tang Ran seemed to remember something and turned to look at Tang Yu. "A doctor from the Qin family has taken a fancy to your medical skills and wants to take you as his disciple." "Qin family?" Tang Yu was shocked. She was overjoyed. "You mean the #1 Qin family in Yellow Spring City?" Apart from being powerful, the Qin family had another eye-catching characteristic. Chen Yuqing, the master of the Qin family, was the most handsome man in Yellow Spring City. Not only was Chen Yuqing beautiful, but he was also gentle and kind. Countless women in Yellow Spring City saw him as their dream lover. However, Chen Yuqing had remained single all these years and had not married. One could not help but wonder if his sexual orientation was normal. Or, was there really no woman in this world who could catch his eye? Tang Ran pressed on Tang Yu's shoulder and said solemnly, "There is one thing you must remember. If you become the disciple of the Qin family's doctor, you must get close to Chen Yuqing. You cannot be arrogant and willful in front of Chen Yuqing. You must be considerate." Tang Ran's eyes shone brightly. As long as you can become the Qin family's wife, the Sky Martial Pavilion's status on the continent will definitely rise. Even the Xianxia auction house will be under our feet. This was the price that Elder Yen had to pay for protecting Yun Luofeng. Tang Yu's eyes sparkled with confidence. "Grandfather, don't you believe in your granddaughter's charm?" Chen Yuqing was a man, but there was no man who wasn't lecherous. Those who tried to get close to Chen Yuqing were all inferior to me, so they failed. And I will definitely succeed. A smile finally appeared on Tang Ran's face. "My granddaughter is naturally very beautiful. However, that woman, Yun Luofeng, is also in Yellow Spring City. I heard that she's extremely beautiful, the #1 beauty in the world. Grandfather is worried that she will have ideas about Chen Yuqing. After all, there is no woman who doesn't want glory and wealth." "Grandfather," Tang Yu curled her lips disdainfully, "Chen Yuqing isn't that stupid. Why would Chen Yuqing want a woman who would climb into another man's bed just to climb up the social ladder? This kind of filthy woman can't be compared to me." Even if that woman had a beauty that could topple nations, she was not worthy to be her opponent. Chapter 559. Haha. Tang Ran burst into laughter. That's right, you're right. How could a filthy woman like her compare to my pure and innocent granddaughter? I have faith in you. Don't disappoint me. He patted Tang Yu's shoulder as he spoke in a serious tone. Tang Yu smiled faintly and lowered her eyes, concealing the ruthlessness in them. Chen Yuqing, the man who made all the women in the Yellow Springs pale in comparison, she must have him. In an auction, the items at the beginning of the auction were relatively ordinary and there were basically no valuable items. However, the items at the end of the auction became more and more valuable. At this moment, the auctioneer slammed the gavel and another item was sold. Ladies and gentlemen, next up, we're auctioning a seed of a tree. The young auctioneer smiled and lifted the red cloth covering the tray. His clear voice slowly rang out in the auction hall. To be honest, I don't know what this seed is either. However, because it was obtained from the deepest part of the other shore mountain, we've concluded that if we can cultivate this seed, perhaps a miracle will happen. The auctioneer's voice was full of temptation, as if he was trying to lure the crowd. However, when the crowd saw the seed on the tray, their burning hearts died down. If this was just a seed, perhaps they would take the risk. However, this seed had obviously withered, as if it had been burned. Even if a god descended, it would not be able to cultivate it. Only a fool would bid for a withered tree seed. The young auctioneer did not seem to notice the crowd's gazes and continued to smile. The starting price is 10 million silvers. Let the bidding begin. At that moment, everyone whispered to each other, but no one made a bid. Just as the crowd thought that no one would bid, a clear voice rang out from the crowd below. 10 million silvers. Lin Ruabai raised his hand weakly and called out the starting price for this item. However, after calling out the price, Lin Ruabai retracted his hand and pursed his lips as he looked at Yun Luofeng. Master, I don't think this seed is very useful. Why do you want it? Yun Luofeng crossed her legs and rested her arms lazily on the back of the chair. Her slightly raised eyebrows carried an incomprehensible smile. The shape of this seed is not bad. I can use a string to make a necklace for my milk tea. The corner of Lin Ruabai's mouth twitched. Master wants this seed to make a necklace for milk tea? For this, he's willing to spend 10 million silvers? At that moment, Lin Ruabai only wanted to say one sentence. Rich people can be willful. When the others heard Yun Luofeng's reply, they all shook their heads and sighed inwardly. Handing the Big Dipper gang over to such a person was tantamount to walking down the road of destruction. Even the gang Yun Luofeng said, Big Dipper. She really didn't know the cost of daily necessities if she wasn't in charge of the household. She actually wasted money like this. Yun Luofeng's this. She was. It. After all, in their eyes, Yun Luofeng, who was dressed in ordinary clothes, could not possibly have 10 million taels. Chapter 560. What right did she have to be so wasteful? It was obvious that even though Yun Luofeng had accepted the Big Dipper gang, the gang members' hearts were not with her. They had only submitted to Yun Luofeng because of Murong Bei's tyranny. 15 million taels. At this moment, a rough voice was heard from the Sky Martial Courts group. A middle-aged man glared at Yun Luofeng coldly and laughed mockingly. I think Murong Bei did not give you that much money. 10 million taels should be your bottom line, right? But it's a pity that I want this tree too. Even though the leader had instructed him not to cause trouble at the auction, his current behavior could not be considered as causing trouble. However, his current behavior could not be considered as provoking trouble. At most, he was competing with others for auction items. Master, Xiao Bai asked hesitantly, should we continue? Hearing this, Yun Luofeng lowered his gaze and caressed the milk tea in his sleeve. His lips curled into a devilish smile. I like this tree very much. What he meant was that he had to bid for the tree no matter what. Lin Ruobai nodded in understanding and continued, 20 million taels. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly and he laughed coldly. Looks like Murong Bei treats you quite well and gave you quite a lot of money. However, no matter how much he gave you, it's impossible for him to give you all his assets. Furthermore, his wealth cannot be compared to the Sky Martial Court's. The Sky Martial Court and the Big Dipper Gang were only ranked in the same league. However, whether it was in terms of strength or wealth, there was a huge difference. That was why the middle-aged man had said such a thing. No matter how he thought about it, the amount of money that Yun Luofeng could use could be described as being as wealthy as a nation. 30 million taels. After saying that, the middle-aged man bid again. Then, he glanced at Yun Luofeng proudly. He wanted to see if this woman would continue bidding against him. In any case, he had brought enough money with him this time around. A mere 30 million taels of silver was nothing to him. As long as he could make this young lady suffer, any price was worth it. 40 million taels. 5,000, 60 million taels. This time, before the middle-aged man could continue, Lin Ruobai's voice interrupted him. 60 million taels. Even in the Sky Martial Court, this was not a small amount. If there wasn't something that the Patriarch wanted to auction in this auction, in that case, he could totally continue to follow them. However, for the sake of that item, he could only steel his heart and give up the competition. However, this did not mean that he was willing to swallow his anger. All of the Big Dipper Gang's assets are only 60 million taels. I don't believe Murong Bei is stupid enough to give you all of it. The middle-aged man sneered, stood up and said arrogantly, I request the auction house to check the assets this woman is carrying. If she didn't bring enough money with her, it would be considered malicious bidding. According to the rules of the auction house, one of her legs will be broken and she will be banished from Netherworld City forever. Lin Ruobai glanced at the middle-aged man as if she was looking at an idiot. With his master's medical skills, he could casually treat a patient and earn tens of millions. In the end, he actually said that his master couldn't even take out 60 million taels? Were the people from the Sky Martial Pavilion all so brainless? Seeing the farce below, the young auctioneer smiled and said, Our auction house naturally has our own rules. We will verify this matter when we hand over the auction items. Please rest assured, young Master Tang Lin. Chapter 561. Talon clenched his teeth and said fiercely, Your Xian auction house doesn't know how cunning this woman is. As long as you give her time, she might come up with some wicked ideas. To prevent your auction house from being cheated, I hereby request that you ask her to take out 60 million taels of silver right now. 60 million taels of silver. Even this woman would not take it out. Talon's lips curled into a smug smile. This was the result of her daring to look down on the Sky Martial Pavilion. The smile on the young auctioneer's face gradually disappeared, and he looked calm. Does Mr. Talon not trust our auction house? No, it's not that I don't trust the Xianxia auction house. I'm just worried that you've been cheated. He knew that offending the Xianxia auction house would not do the Sky Martial Pavilion any good, but he did not want to let go of such a great opportunity. This time, Talon did not give the young auctioneer a chance to speak. He turned around and looked at Yun Luofeng next to him. He smiled sarcastically. Yun Luofeng, let me guess. How much silver did Murong Bei give you? However, no matter how much silver he gave you, it's impossible for it to be 60 million taels of silver. You don't have that kind of money, yet you insisted on bidding this price. Aren't you courting death? When he spoke up to hear, Talon paused slightly before he continued, Now, I'll let everyone in the Skyrise auction house see your ugly face. In the face of Tang Lin's aggression, Yun Luofeng remained calm and at ease. She accepted the cup of tea that Lin Ruobai handed over and took a sip without batting an eyelid. Her pitch-black eyes were silent. Yun Luofeng. Seeing Yun Luofeng's indifference, Talon could not hold back the anger in his chest. He almost spat it out. If you can't take out 60 million taels of silver, then get out of here. Don't come here and make trouble. Yun Luofeng put down the teacup in her hand and looked at the middle-aged man next to her with a faint smile. What if I can take out 60 million taels of silver? Talon sneered. Are you trying to say that Murong Bei gave you all his money? Do you think I'll believe that? Yun Luofeng shrugged. If I can take out 60 million taels of silver, why don't you pay for the tree? Talon's expression changed slightly. He was very clear of Yun Luofeng's cunning. Otherwise, the Tian family would not have been destroyed by her. Now that she had said such words, could it be that she really had 60 million taels in her hands? Thinking of this, Talon hesitated, and his eyes were filled with hesitation. What? Are you afraid? Lin Ruabai seized this opportunity and immediately stood up. He placed his hands on his hips and raised his chin to look down at Tang Lin. Didn't you just swear that my master would definitely not be able to take out 60 million taels? Now that my master wants to bet with you, you're afraid? Talon's face paled. He seemed to feel the mocking gazes around him and hurriedly defended himself. Who said I'm a coward? I, Tang Lin, am not afraid of anything. Why would I be afraid of you two little girls? Since you're afraid, why don't you dare to make the bet? Lin Ruabai asked arrogantly. Tang Lin opened his mouth. For a moment, his throat was dry and hard to swallow. He didn't know how to answer Lin Ruabai's question. Only now did he realize that he had unknowingly fallen into the trap set up by the other party. The people from the Sky Marshal Pavilion don't dare to bet? Could it be that they're really afraid? I think so too. It seems that the Sky Marshal Pavilion is afraid of the new leader of the Big Dipper gang. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so timid. Chapter 562. Hee, didn't you hear what Tang Lin said just now? He's clearly afraid, but he's still denying it. If it were me, I would definitely agree to this bet. I can't possibly lose anyway. Tang Lin's expression changed once again when he heard these people's discussions. However, he was now in a difficult position. No one knew better than him what it meant to not agree to a bet because of fear in Netherworld City. This meant that from now on, for a very long time, the Sky Marshal Pavilion would have to live with the sound of mockery. Hence, to preserve the Sky Marshal Court's reputation, Tang Lin gritted his teeth and said firmly, "It's just a bet. When have I, Tang Lin, ever been afraid? Alright, I accept this bet of yours. However, if you can't produce 60 million taels, you must break your own leg and never set foot in Netherworld City ever again." Yun Luofeng smiled and retracted her gaze. She reached into her sleeves and took out a few banknotes before handing them to Lin Ruabai. These are 6 banknotes, each worth 10 million taels. Bring them to the auctioneer and let them be notarized. Tang Lin's expression froze and his eyes were filled with shock. This is impossible. Did Murong Bei really hand over all his assets to this woman? Could it be that he was really that stupid? If I had known this, I would have bid again. Even Murong Bei would not have such a rich family asset once it exceeded 70 million taels. Tang Lin was a little annoyed. He never thought that Murong Bei, who had always been smart, would become so stupid. The young auctioneer took the banknotes from Lin Ruabai and examined them before returning them to her. Then his clear voice echoed through the entire auction hall. That's right, there are indeed 60 million taels here. Tang Lin, you should fulfill your promise and pay for this lady. Bang. As soon as the young auctioneer finished speaking, Talon stumbled and fell heavily onto his chair. His face was filled with despair. I'm finished. This time, I'm definitely finished. Not only have I wasted 60 million taels, but I've also allowed the enemy of the Sky Marshal Court to pick up an item for free. If the court leader finds out about this, he would not let me off so easily. Talon Lin had already imagined the outcome after he returned to the Sky Marshal Pavilion. His pale face gradually became sorrowful. Ladies and gentlemen, since this little farce has come to an end, let us continue with the auction. The next item for auction is a spiritual beast called the Tsang Mountain Snow Wolf. The starting bid is also 10 million silvers, and the highest bidder wins. Ding. As the young auctioneer's hammer fell, the auction continued. At this time, in a luxurious private room on the top floor, the man was sitting on a soft cushion, holding a cup of tea in his hand, sipping it elegantly. His eyes were gentle, like the spring water in the sky, clear and sweet, but also seemed to be enveloped in that warm light. Her hair was as white as snow, so beautiful that it made people forget to breathe. It was as if no one in the world could deprive this man of his light. Even if he sat still, he was like an unreal painting. This girl? I really admire her. The man's lips curled into a soul-stirring smile. As expected of the person recommended by Xianxia. When old Yen, who was waiting on the side, heard the man's words, he immediately said respectfully, Chen family head, since you admire Yun Luofeng so much, why don't I invite her over? There's no need for that for now. The man laughed softly. His slender fingers gently brushed the edge of the teacup. Then he noticed that a little bug had unknowingly fallen into the teacup. He could not help but furrow his brows. Chapter 563. Elder Yen also noticed the little bug. He paused for a moment and quickly said, Master Chen, I will change the tea for you now. This teacup is already dirty. What he meant was that even if Elder Yen changed the tea, it would not change the fact that the bug had tainted the teacup. Elder Yen understood what the man meant and immediately shouted, Give Master Chen a new cup. Hearing this, a servant immediately walked out of the room with a teacup in her hand. Not long after, she walked back into the room and placed a new teacup in front of him. Elder Yen secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and smiled bitterly. Although Chen Yuqing was usually easy to get along with and treated people gently. However, he had a big problem. That was his obsession with cleanliness. Especially when his obsession with cleanliness was to the point of insanity. Just like now, even if a bug fell into the teacup, all he needed to do was to change the tea. But he even needed to change the entire cup. If this was not a problem, what was it? Master Qin, do you need me to do anything now? Elder Yen cursed in his heart but did not dare to show it on his face. He still asked respectfully, You may leave. Chen Yuqing glanced at Senior Yen indifferently. His voice was as pleasant as a clear spring, causing ripples in the air. Yes, Elder Yen cupped his fists respectfully, then waved his hand at the maids in the room and said, All of you can leave now. The servant girls bowed and left the room. From the beginning to the end, the servant girls did not dare to look at Chen Yuqing. It was as if looking at him was blasphemy to this fairy-like man. Chen Yuqing's fingers caressed the teacup and his lips curled into a smile. His gaze seemed to pass through the door and catch a glimpse of the beautiful figure sitting below. Yun Luofeng is indeed interesting. She is someone who does not like to be taken advantage of. If the Sky Martial Court interacts with her, she will definitely eat them up. In the auction hall, as the young auctioneer's hammer fell, another auction item was sold. Then, he took out another tray, cleared his throat, and said, Ladies and gentlemen, this is the finale of today's auction, a medical book left behind by a doctor 1,000 years ago. That doctor's name is Zhu Qian. Zhu Qian? Upon hearing this name, everyone's hearts suddenly trembled. They looked at the auctioneer as if they were looking at a little girl, wishing they could immediately pounce on her. What the name Zhu Qian represented, there was probably no one who did not know. It was said that the doctor had already reached the level of resurrection. Even those who were on the verge of death could be saved by him. It could be said that there was no illness in the world that he could not cure. Zhu Qian's medical skills were written with his lifetime's worth of precious experience, and he had once been pursued by countless doctors on the continent. But no one could find the location of his medical books. He didn't expect it to appear in the auction. All of a sudden, everyone's breathing quickened. There is no reserve price for this medical book. You can bid as you wish, the young auctioneer said with a smile. Talon's eyes brightened. It was obvious that this was his goal in coming to the auction. As long as he could get his hands on this medical book and study it, he might be able to find a way to cure the Chen clan leader. If the Sky Martial Court could cure the Chen clan leader, they would definitely be valued by the Chen clan. Chapter 564. Even if he couldn't find a cure, he could still give the book to the doctor who wanted to take Tang Yu as his disciple. Anyway, as long as they were on the same boat as the Chen family, the Sky Martial Pavilion's position in the Yellow Springs would be stabilized. Master, Lin Ruabai's eyes lit up. Tianya will definitely like this medical book. I owe Tianya a favor, so I want to give it to him as a gift. Although Tianya didn't cure her illness, he still went all the way to the spiritual god mountain to save her. She would remember this debt of gratitude. Now that there was a way to repay him, she wouldn't give up. As for Yun Luofeng, in Lin Ruabai's heart, Yun Luofeng's medical skills weren't any worse than Zhu Qian's. Hence, this medical book wasn't that important to Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng paused, then said, For your sake, I can give Tianya some pointers. There's no need for this medical book. She had the Holy Book of Medicine. All the medical books in the world couldn't compare to the Holy Book of Medicine. As for the Holy Book of Medicine, at the end of the day, even if that person had already died, she could still pull him back. Lin Ruobai's eyes lit up, and she smiled brightly. "Master, I know you treat me the best." Indeed, if she had Yun Luofeng's guidance, it would be better than studying this medical book. If World's Edge knew about this, Tai Ding would be so happy that he wouldn't be able to find his north. Tang Lin snorted coldly and glanced at Yun Luofeng disdainfully. "You're too arrogant. You think you can compare to Zhu Qian? You really haven't seen the world. Maybe you don't even know who Zhu Qian is." After saying this, he turned to the young auctioneer and said loudly, "I bid 80 million. Seeing that someone had already made a bid, the others came back to their senses and entered the bidding war. 100 million. 140,000 taels. Because the medical book was too important, more and more people entered the bidding war. Very quickly, the price went from 80 million to 500 million. In the private room, Chen Yuqing was elegantly sipping her tea. She wasn't affected by the noise below. Patriarch. However, the beautiful maidservant behind him could not stand it any longer. She could not help but ask, "Should we bid for this medical book?" Once the Chen family made their move, the other families wouldn't even have a chance to turn back. Chen Yuqing's finger lightly tapped on the table, and a pensive look crossed her face. "Say, since Yun Luofeng is a doctor, shouldn't he also be interested in medical books?" The beautiful maid was startled and hesitantly said, "Patriarch, you mean, if I bid for this medical book and give it to her, will she owe me a favor? At that time, when I look for her to treat my illness, she might not reject me." The man's handsome face was lit up with a gentle smile. His snow-white long hair cascaded lazily against the soft mattress. His body leaned lazily against the soft mattress as his eyes shone with a faint light. The beautiful maid couldn't understand why her master wanted to please a woman. As she was usually trusted by Chen Yuqing, she asked the question in her heart. "Patriarch, the Chen family has many doctors as well. Hence, I don't understand why you would want to bid for this medical book and give it to her. Furthermore, if you were to ask her to treat your illness, why would she refuse? There are too many people in this world who want to curry favor with the Chen family. Who would give up on such an opportunity?" Chapter 565. Chen Yuqing smiled calmly. "According to Xianxia, this girl's temper isn't very good. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to get her to treat illnesses unless she's in a good mood. And the only way to make a doctor feel good is to give her a precious medical book." His voice paused for a moment before he continued. "As for what you said earlier, I can tell you the truth. I'm afraid the doctors of the Chen family can't compare to this girl. In their hands, this kind of medical book is no different from a piece of scrap paper." The beautiful servant girl bit her lip. She felt slightly sour in her heart. All these years, she had never seen the master treat any woman specially. Even though he spoke very gently like an immortal, his gentleness always carried a sense of alienation and indifference. Only she made the master look at her in a different light. At this moment, the price outside soared and quickly reached 11. Chen Yuqing also felt that this was the best time to make a move. However, at this moment, a demonic voice rang out from the auction hall. 1,010 million. When this voice rang out, Chen Yuqing swallowed the words that she had almost blurted out. He smiled calmly and said, "It seems that we don't need to make a move." But the beautiful servant girl looked at Chen Yuqing in confusion. "Since this girl has spoken, we can't make a move. Otherwise, she might think that I'm trying to snatch something from her. So, I can only give up on using the medical book to please her." In the auction hall, Tang Lin was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He glared fiercely at Yun Luofeng. "Didn't you say that you don't like Zhu Qian's medical book? Why are you still fighting with me?" 1,000,000,000 taels was almost his bottom line. Just as he was about to succeed, this woman Yun Luofeng had run out and interfered. Yun Luofeng leaned lazily against the back of his chair and smiled evilly. "I'll buy it and burn it for fun." "You?" Tang Lin pointed angrily at Yun Luofeng. "Where did you get 1 billion? If you bid maliciously in the auction hall, you won't be able to bear the consequences." Yun Luofeng glanced at him and his lips curled into a smile. Do you still want me to notarize your assets? Sure. Of course, the consequences are still the same. If I can take out 1 billion taels of silver, you can buy this medical book and let me burn it for fun. Tang Lin immediately fell silent. He had already suffered once. How could he suffer a second time? Therefore, this time, he didn't forcefully want to notarize Yun Luofeng's assets, and instead turned his gaze towards the young auctioneer. I bid 2 billion. He gritted his teeth fiercely, but his internal organs were in extreme pain from being stifled. Yun Luofeng, don't you like competing with me? Since that's the case, I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. A sinister glint flashed across his eyes, and he sneered in his heart. This woman was still too inexperienced to tease him. 21 billion taels. 3 billion. Tang Lin glared at Yun Luofeng and sneered. After bidding this price, he planned to stop. This was because he had brought a total of 2 billion. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to defeat Yun Luofeng, he wouldn't have continued to bid. Moreover, according to Yun Luofeng's personality, he would definitely continue. If she couldn't take out 3 billion by then, the Xianxia auction house would definitely not let her go. As expected, the young lady's voice rang out again. However, what she said made Tang Lin's face instantly turn green. You win. Chapter 566. You won? What did she mean? Was she going to give up just like that? If that was the case, the consequences that awaited him would be. Thinking of the serious consequences, Talon's face twisted. He clenched his fists tightly. Yun Luofeng, are you fucking messing with me? It was only then that Talon realized that Yun Luofeng had no intention of competing with him for the medical book. She was just messing with him. It was ridiculous that he thought that he could trick this woman this time. Who knew that he would fall into her trap again? I told you before that I'm not interested in the medical book, but you didn't believe me. Yun Luofeng chuckled. Besides, if I really wanted to burn it for fun, 1 billion silver notes would be enough for me to burn for a long time. No matter what, it would be better than this medical book. But you're too stupid. You didn't even realize that. Talon's body trembled. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak. No wonder the chief had warned him not to fight Yun Luofeng head-on. It wasn't because the chief was afraid of the Xianxia auction house, but because this woman was as cunning as a fox. No matter who dealt with her, they would be at a disadvantage. Yun Luofeng didn't look at Talon anymore. She turned around and lectured Lin Rubai. Xiaobai, you have to remember that when it comes to cheating people, you have to observe their breathing. Just like when I was bidding against him at the beginning, I felt that his breathing was still very violent, so I was sure that he would continue bidding. Then, his breathing suddenly calmed down. I knew that he was definitely going to give up on the medical book. That was why I stopped bidding. When it came to tricking people, it never depended on luck. If you relied on luck, you would only get yourself into trouble. Lin Ruabai nodded in understanding. Master, I understand. I must learn from you. Cheating people doesn't pay with my life. Seeing that Talon looked like he wanted to eat someone alive, Lin Ruabai felt a sense of satisfaction that he had never felt before. Also, Yun Luofeng smirked evilly. I want to request the auction house to conduct a property check on the Sky Marshal Pavilion. The Sky Marshal Pavilion was determined to get the medical book. If it wasn't for the lack of silver, they would never give up. That was why Yun Luofeng requested for a property inspection. Miss, since the Sky Marshal Court has requested for you to hand over your assets, then you have the right to do so. Our auction house has always been fair. If he doesn't hand over the 1,300,000,000 taels, then I'll cut off his path of retreat and banish him from Nether City forever. The young auctioneer smiled and turned to look at Talon Lin. Young Master Talon Lin, have you brought the 3 billion taels of silver? Talon's expression changed slightly. He subconsciously stood up from his seat and said with a pale face, I will go back and ask the pavilion master to sell his assets. Please give us some time. The young auctioneer furrowed his brows. Our auction house has a rule that anyone who steps into this place must bring enough wealth with them. There is never a time limit. Since you didn't bring enough silver, Why did you bid for more than what you have? Talon Lin clenched his fists tightly. Previously, he had only been thinking about Dark Cloud Maple and hadn't considered so much. I will definitely hand over 3 billion. I can give you 2 billion as a deposit now. Give me 10 days, and I will give you the remaining 100 million. His tone slowed down, and there was even a hint of pleading in it. Chapter 567. I'm sorry, the young auctioneer's tone became indifferent. I can't agree to this. I can only give you 2 choices now. One is to take out 3 billion, and 2 is to break one of your legs and leave immediately. Talon's eyes were filled with fear and he could not help but take a step back. The chair behind him accidentally fell to the ground and made a muffled sound. You really can't make an exception? He bit his lip tightly and asked pleadingly. The young auctioneer frowned and his tone gradually became impatient. Someone, drag this malicious bidder out, break his leg, and throw him out of Netherworld City, he said coldly with an expressionless face. Instantly, 2 gray-robed elders walked out from a dark corner of the auction house. Without another word, they stepped forward and dragged Talon out of the door. As he was dragged by the 2 experts, Talon let out a shrill voice. Yun Luofeng, you vicious woman. You won't have a good ending for harming me like this. A shrill cry suddenly rang out and resounded through the entire auction house. It caused the hairs of everyone in the auction house to stand on end, and their gazes towards Yun Luofeng gradually became filled with fear. The young auctioneer cleared his throat, coughed twice and said, since the malicious bidder has been dealt with, the medical book will be auctioned again. The eyes of the crowd, who had originally thought that they had no chance with the medical book, lit up when they heard this, and they all began to bid. In the luxurious box, Chen Yuqing was still watching the auction outside coldly and did not interfere with the crowd. The beautiful servant pondered for a moment and asked, Master, didn't you want to bid for the medical book and give it to her? Why wasn't she doing anything now? Chen Yuqing smiled faintly, because I realized that the girl doesn't seem to have any interest in this medical book. If I want to gain her favor, I can only find another way. When the beautiful maid saw how much Chen Yuqing cared about Yun Luofeng, her heart was once again filled with jealousy. However, she concealed her inner feelings very well. Her beautiful face was still incomparably cold and aloof. Let's go. This auction is boring. It's better to go back and play the guqin. Chen Yuqing stood up from the soft mattress and stroked her crescent-colored robe before elegantly walking towards the door. In the auction hall, Yun Luofeng seemed to sense something. She raised her head and looked towards the second floor. She could faintly see a head of snow-white hair. Master, what's wrong? Lin Rubai asked curiously as he turned to look at Yun Luofeng. It's nothing. Yun Luofeng shook his head and asked in a deep voice, who can go to the second floor? The voice of a Big Dipper gang member rang out. There are a total of 3 private rooms on the second floor. They're reserved for the top 3 forces in Yellow Spring City. Which faction is in the rightmost box? Qin clan? Qin family? Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. The white figure that had just left was very powerful. She still couldn't tell how strong he was. This Yellow Spring City is truly a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. After a long time, Yun Luofeng sighed softly. If he wanted to gain a foothold in this continent, it seemed that he still had a long way to go. Do you still have 1 billion taels of silver? 1 billion taels going once. 1 billion taels twice. 1 billion twice or thrice. Alright, sold. The young auctioneer slammed his hammer down and smiled faintly. Today's auction has come to a successful end. Everyone, you may leave now. Those who have won an item, please wait a moment. We will have someone deliver the item to your hands in a moment. Chapter 568. The auction house was very efficient. In just a moment, a maidservant had brought in the items for auction. The money that Yun Luofeng had obtained from the bidding for the seed had been deducted from Tang Lin. Let's go. Yun Luofeng rose to her feet and walked towards the door. Let's go back and prepare for the battle against the Sky Martial Court. This battle was unavoidable. Even without Tianyu, she would still fight against the Sky Martial Court. Her goal was to ensure that the Big Dipper sect would enter the top 10 and have the opportunity to head to the other shore mountain. However, Yun Luofeng did not know that her actions at the auction had caused yet another storm in the Sky Martial Court. Bang! Tang Ran slammed his fist on the table. His face was ashen and his expression was malevolent. Yun Luofeng. First, you've crippled Tianyu's arm. Now, you've schemed against Tang Lin and caused him to lose a leg. I will not rest until I have my revenge. As he spoke, a calm laugh rang out from outside the great hall. The voice was calm and it caused Tang Ran's heart to calm down. Tang Ran, what has made you so angry? Tang Ran looked at the old man who was walking towards him, and his expression gradually calmed down. He hurriedly stepped forward to greet him. Lord Xianxia, it's actually nothing much. It's just that a blind woman has offended the Sky Martial Court. Xianxia did not probe further. He curled the corners of his lips and smiled. Where's Tang Yu? I'm here to see her. May I ask if she can come out and see me? Tang Ran looked hesitant and hesitated to speak. Chen Tian's eyes darkened when he saw his expression. What? You don't want me to accept Tang Yu as my disciple? Tang Yu's talent in medicine was not bad. Chen Tian would never let go of anyone who had a bit of talent in medicine. Because of this, he now had over 100 disciples. No, Tang Ran hurriedly defended himself. It's my grandson who has come to the Sky Martial Court to seek refuge with me. However, I was unable to protect him and caused his arm to be chopped off. Now Yuer is taking care of him. As Qin Tian did not participate in the auction and the auction had just ended, he did not know what had happened at the auction. Your Sky Martial Pavilion is ranked 10th in the Yellow Springs. I wonder who would be so daring as to harm your grandson? Chen Tian's voice was indifferent. Tang Ran laughed bitterly. It's the Big Dipper Gang's new leader, Yun Luofeng. This Yun Luofeng first forced an innocent woman to become a prostitute and wanted to force my grandson's clansmen to marry his guard. In the end, my grandson's clan rebelled. Because of this, he massacred his entire family. The strong preyed on the weak. That was the truth of this world. As such, Qin Tian's expression did not change much. Who asked those people to be weaker than Yun Luofeng? His death was not unjust. Tang Ran naturally knew Qin Tian's personality. Therefore, he paused for a moment before he continued. However, Yun Luofeng has been to the Nether City recently and used his beauty to seduce the leader of the Big Dipper Gang, Murong Bei. As a result, Murong Bei gave the Big Dipper Gang to him. As for Yuer, she could not stand it any longer and said a few words. Who would have thought that she would order her disciple to attack Yuer? Lin Ruobai had indeed attacked Tang Yu at the time. However, it was not Yun Luofeng's order. However, no matter what, it was a fact that she had attacked Tang Yu. This was the reason why Tang Ran dared to distort the truth. Chapter 569. My grandson had his hand chopped off because he wanted to save Yuer. Tang Ran retorted angrily. In the beginning, Chen Tian did not feel much about the destruction of the Tian family. After all, this was a place where the fist reigned supreme. Most importantly, it had not happened to him. However, when he heard that Yun Luofeng had attacked Tang Yu, he frowned. Tang Yu was going to be his disciple after all. How could he allow someone else to act with such impudence? Wasn't this the same as slapping him in the face? Tang Ran's eyes flickered when he saw the cold look on Qin Tian's face. He then said, Lord Qin Tian, I've also heard that Yun Luofeng had used her beauty to seduce the Qin family master. She even believes that she is the only one in this world who is worthy of the Qin family master. Qin Tian scoffed icily and swept a cold glare at Tang Ran. Are you telling the truth? I swear that everything I've said is the truth. Tang Ran raised his finger and swore, if I'm lying, I will be struck by lightning. Besides, why would I dare to lie to you, Lord Qin Tian? Tang Ran's face was filled with a flattering smile as he spoke. He had the urge to kneel down and lick his boots. If everything you've said is true, then that woman thinks too highly of herself. How noble is our patriarch? How could she be worthy of him? Furthermore, Chen Tian paused before he continued with a cold smile. The master has always been a clean freak. A woman who sells herself in order to curry favor with the rich and powerful is as disgusting as a fly. He would never spare her a second glance. All these years, the patriarch had rejected all the women who adored him. Wasn't it because he disliked the strong smell of cosmetics on those women? To someone who has always been a clean freak, this was a form of torture. Lord Xianxia is right, Yun Luofeng is as disgusting as a fly. I've even heard that she has had many men in the past. How could a shameless woman like her compare to the purity of my Yuer? Am I right, Lord Xianxia? Chen Tian seemed to sense Tang Ran's thoughts and furrowed his brows. The master does not like women to get close to him, so don't try to instill such thoughts in Yuer's mind. If she offends the master, even I won't be able to save her. However, I can remind you that the patriarch doesn't like women with heavy makeup. Thank you, Lord Xianxia, for your reminder. I will tell Yuer to be careful. A light flashed across Tang Ran's eyes as he continued. Furthermore, my Yuer is different from a woman like Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng is a person who can climb into anyone's bed. Yuer is very loyal to her feelings. Regardless of wealth or poverty, as long as she has her eyes on someone, she will not turn her back on them. That's why I said that there are very few people as pure as you are in this world. In order to get Tang Yu to join the Qin family, Tang Ran tried his best to boast about himself. Moreover, he did not forget to insult Yun Luofeng. As long as Chen Tian remembered Yun Luofeng's character, then she would never be able to step into the Qin family. Chen Tian nodded slightly. Yuer, aside from her bad temper, is quite a good child. If the patriarch can accept her, that would be for the best. However, I can't help much in this aspect. She must rely on her own efforts. Lord Xianxia's words are more than enough. Tang Ran's heart leapt with joy and a pleased smile appeared on his face. Even the loss that the heavenly martial court had suffered today had been thrown to the back of his head. Chapter 570. Let's go. Take me to see Yuer. If possible, I will accept her as my disciple today. Chen Tian thought for a moment before he spoke. Lord Xianxia, this way please. The smile on Tang Ran's face became even more flattering. He gestured for Chen Tian to follow him and led the way. Tang Yu stood guard by the bed in the quiet inner hall. She stared worriedly at Tang Tianyu's bloodless face as a hint of guilt appeared in her eyes. Cousin, I'm sorry. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been injured. Tang Yu gently pursed her red lips. Don't worry, I will avenge you and cut off Yun Luofeng's arm for you. The man on the bed seemed to hear Tang Yu's words. His eyebrows twitched slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. His eyes were gently shut and there was a look of pain on his face. Yuer. Suddenly, an elderly voice rang out from the outer hall. Lord Xianxia has come to accept you as his disciple. Hurry up and receive him. Tang Yu's heart skipped a beat and she quickly stood up from the bed. At that moment, Tang Ran led Xianxia into the room. Tang Yu's lips moved as she looked at Xianxia's figure. Lord Xianxia. Silly child, why are you still calling me Lord? Hurry up and greet your master. Tang Ran shot Tang Yu a look as he spoke gently. Tang Yu suppressed the excitement in her heart and walked to Xianxia's side. She bowed slightly. Your disciple greets you, master. Ha, Xianxia laughed heartily. Not bad, you're a good seedling. Yuer, from now on, are you willing to learn medicine from me? There was a smile in Tang Yu's eyes. It's my honor that you're willing to accept me as your disciple, master. How could I reject you so ungratefully? Even though Tang Yu was still arrogant and willful, she would only show her best side in front of the members of the Qin family. Sure enough, her words of flattery made Chen Tian feel much better, and the smile on his face widened slightly. Yuer, I heard that you want to become the wife of the Qin family's master? Tang Yu was stunned. She instinctively turned to look at Tang Ran. At this moment, Tang Ran also frowned, as if he did not expect Chen Tian to ask this question in front of Tang Yu. He was a little worried that Tang Yu would answer incorrectly, and a trace of anxiety appeared in his eyes. Master. Tang Yu calmed herself down and turned to look at Chen Tian. I have no intention of becoming the master's wife. She paused, then continued, I just like Chen Yuqing. That's it. In other words, she liked Chen Yuqing and it had nothing to do with his identity. After all, Tang Yu had been in the Sky Martial Pavilion for so many years. How could she be so stupid? Naturally, she knew what to say would benefit her the most. In reality, if Qin Yuqing was not the Qin family's master, she would never want to marry her. No matter how beautiful a man was, if he didn't have any power, how could he be worthy of her? Chen Tian believed Tang Yu's words. He laughed heartily, clearly in a good mood. You, is really different from those coquettish bitches outside. You're the only one who doesn't love the master's identity and only loves him as a person. If you continue this way, I believe that the master will be moved by you in the near future. The corners of his lips curled into a smile. If his disciple were to become the master's wife, it would be very beneficial to him as well. As such, when faced with Tang Yu's obvious intentions, he would not stop her. Instead, he would add fuel to the fire. Chapter 571. I've heard about the grievances you've suffered from your grandfather, Chen Tian smiled. If there's anything you need help with, feel free to tell me. I will help you. Thank you, Master. Tang Yu's lips curled into a pleased smile. The Sky Martial Court can handle this matter. However, there's one thing I would like to ask for your help with. If Yun Luofeng tries to seduce Master Qin, please stop him. I can't stop this. Chen Tian glanced at Tang Yu and said, Master's personality is like this. No one can influence his decisions. Tang Yu smiled and said, Master, you've misunderstood me. I'm worried that Master Qin has been deceived by Yun Luofeng. That woman is extremely cunning and likes to pretend to be pure. Furthermore, she likes to play hard to get. I hope that when she tries to seduce Master Qin, you will expose her evil deeds. Based on Master Qin's personality, he would never choose such a vile woman. You don't have to worry about this. I won't allow such an impure woman to become the matriarch of the Chen family. Chen Tian's eyes flashed with hatred. When that time comes, if she really dares to seduce Master Qin, I will expose her character. If Master Qin still chooses her, we will have no choice but to make a move against her in secret. With Chen Tian's guarantee, Tang Yu's smile grew even wider and her eyes filled with pride. Yun Luofeng, how can a filthy woman like you compare to me? Even if the Sky Martial Court has suffered at your hands, I will make you pay for it with interest in the future. It's getting late. I need to return to the Qin family. If you have any questions, you can come to the Qin family and ask me. Chen Tian smiled as he spoke. Yes, Master. Tang Yu's heart leaped with joy. She knew that her master had opened a convenient path for her so that she could get close to Qin Yuqing. As long as she could enter the Qin family, would she still have to worry about not being able to meet that fairy-like man? Chen Tian nodded in satisfaction. He patted Tang Yu's shoulder earnestly and said, I'll be waiting for your good news. When you come to the Qin family tomorrow, I'll tell you about the master's preferences and taboos, just in case you make an unforgivable mistake. Tang Yu nodded seriously. Once she had her master's help, she was determined to obtain Qin Yuqing. Big Dipper Gang. In the secret chamber where Murong Bei was cultivating in seclusion, he was resting with his eyes closed. All of a sudden, a group of people walked into the secret chamber without greeting him and questioned him. Gangmaster, was it easy for our Big Dipper Gang to accumulate 60 million taels of silver all these years? Why did you give her everything you had? That's right. Not only did you make her the leader of the Big Dipper Gang, but you even gave her all of your assets. Most of our assets have been divided up by other forces, and a lot of our money has also been stolen. Now, we only have 60 million taels of silver left. Why do you want to give it all to her? Murong Bei was completely dumbfounded by their questions. Clearly, he had no idea what they were talking about. What do you mean by that? What did they mean by giving all of his assets to Yun Luofeng? Gangmaster, don't hide it from me. Today, she took out 60 million taels of silver at the auction. If it weren't for you, how could she possibly have so much silver? Chapter 572. Besides, Master, do you know what she wants to bid for? She actually bid for a withered tree seed? What's the use of that tree seed? She actually wanted to use all of the Big Dipper Gang's money to buy that tree seed. If not for the idiot from the Sky Martial Court, the Big Dipper Gang would have been penniless. The crowd grew even more furious as they spoke. Previously, they did not agree with Murong Bei handing over the Big Dipper Gang, but they did not dare to say anything. They did not expect this woman to be such a wastrel. It was not that she did not care about the money that she had worked so hard to save up. Murong Bei was still confused. He asked in a daze, "Wait, Yunluo? The current gang leader spent money to bid for the withered tree seed. What does that have to do with me? Gang leader, are you still going to protect her at a time like this?" They simply could not understand what kind of charm Yun Luofeng had that caused the gang leader to be so mesmerized by her. Murong Bei frowned. "I'm no longer your gang leader. You should call me vice gang leader. Also, I didn't give the money to the gang leader. It's her own." "Gang leader." The crowd was about to say something when Murong Bei stood up from the ground and walked to the wall quietly. His hand gently turned the dragon's head on the wall. Not long after, a deep groove appeared on the wall. He took out a box from the groove and carefully opened it. "My money is here. You can come and take a look if you don't believe me." "What?" Everyone was taken aback and stepped forward. When they saw the banknotes lying in the box, their expressions froze. Had they really wronged Yun Luofeng? The banknotes in her hands didn't come from the sect master? Murong Bei sighed softly and smiled bitterly. "I didn't tell you the real reason why she took over the Big Dipper gang in the past because of my pride. Now that something like this has happened, I'll tell you. I handed the Big Dipper gang to her because she defeated me." Murong Bei's words were like a bolt from the blue. The crowd was stunned. Yun Luofeng defeated the gang leader? How was that possible? The gang leader was a celestial spirit cultivator. How could Yun Luofeng have the ability to defeat him? But the gang leader never lied. Could it be that this was true? Brother Pang Fei knows about this. They were also present that day. Murong Bei's face was filled with helplessness. "I'm telling you all this because I want you to not offend her and obey her orders unconditionally. Moreover, she once said that she would bring the Big Dipper gang back to its former glory." The crowd, who were initially shocked, could not help but have a glimmer of hope in their eyes when they heard what Murong Bei said. Ever since the Big Dipper gang's position had fallen a few years ago, they had suffered a lot of humiliation. If Yun Luofeng would really lead them back to their former positions, then they would definitely submit to her. This was the reality of Yellow Spring City. The strong were revered. Only those with strength would be respected by the world. Just as everyone was whispering to each other, a young girl's voice suddenly came from outside the secret chamber. "Why are you all gathered here?" This voice was extremely familiar to everyone. Therefore, when they heard the young girl's words, a trace of awkwardness appeared on their faces. They felt ashamed as if they had been caught snitching. We're here to listen to Vice Sect Master's lecture. Chapter 573. That's right. We're here to listen to you. Everyone smiled awkwardly. Even the way they addressed Murong Bei had changed from gang leader to vice leader. To be honest, it was impossible for Murong Bei to not feel disappointed when these people changed. However, it was still better than offending Yun Luofeng. Moreover, these few people had already thought it through. As long as the Big Dipper gang could regain its former status, it did not matter if he was not the gang leader anymore. Nothing was more important than his brothers' lives. Is that so? Yun Luofeng looked at the people in the secret room with a faint smile. "Are you not here to tell on me?" Everyone looked even more embarrassed when they heard that. "How is that possible? Our admiration for you is like a surging river. Why would we come to tell on you?" "Gang leader, you must be mistaken. We would never do such a despicable thing." Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. He did not bother to verify whether these people were telling the truth or not. He said with a smile, "I have something to discuss with Murong Bei. You guys can leave first." "Yes, gang leader." Everyone bowed and quickly left the secret room. A while later, Yun Luofeng and Murong Bei were the only ones left in the secret room. Murong Bei looked rather awkward. He asked embarrassedly, "Why are you looking for me?" "If I'm not mistaken, you've been ambushed ever since you broke through to the Celestial Spirit Warrior. That's why you'll feel excruciating pain every time you absorb spiritual energy. Am I right?" Yun Luofeng raised his brows lightly. A devilish smile appeared on his beautiful face. Murong Bei's expression changed drastically. He asked in fear, How did you know?" All these years, he did not even tell the people he trusted the most to avoid causing panic among the gang members. How did this young lady find out about this? To a doctor, no illness can escape her eyes. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile as he glanced at Murong Bei. Murong Bei's emotions gradually calmed down. He said with a bitter smile, "Gang leader, can you help me keep this a secret? I don't want anyone else to know. You've been hiding it from them for years. You won't be able to hide it for long." Yun Luofeng paused and continued, "However, I can treat you." "What?" Murong Bei was stunned for a moment before a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes. In the past few years, it wasn't that he hadn't secretly looked for a doctor. In fact, he had left Yellow Spring City several times in order to look for a doctor. But in the end, it was still incurable. Now, Yun Luofeng was telling him that there was still hope for his illness? He did not need to be stuck in the heavenly spirit realm for the rest of his life. Murong Bei became excited, but he also understood that Yun Luofeng would not save him so easily. Therefore, after a short period of excitement, his emotions calmed down again. "Tell me, what do you want?" He was already prepared. No matter what condition Yun Luofeng offered, he would accept it. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin and evilly glanced at him. "You don't seem to have anything on you that I want." Murong Bei's face turned slightly pale. "Leader, you've already said that you can save me. That proves that you have the heart to save me. As long as you make a request, no matter what it is, I will agree to it. Indeed, you don't have anything that I want on you. However," Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. "This sincerity of yours is worth something. If you're willing to give me all of your loyalty, I'll save you." Chapter 574. Murong Bei was slightly stunned. A glimmer of hope flashed across his eyes. As long as Yun Luofeng was willing to save him, he would not even need to give up all of his loyalty. Even if he had to work himself to the bone, he would not reject it. "I'm willing." He said those 3 words with sincerity and determination in his eyes. "I'll help you recover in 3 days." Yun Luofeng raised her brows. "Also, apart from your loyalty, you'll need to pay me 50 million taels of silver as a consultation fee." 50 million taels? Murong Bei gasped. The corner of his lips could not help but twitch a few times. "So expensive? I've never paid less than 50 million taels of silver when I save someone." This meant that she had paid more than 50 million taels of silver every time she saved someone. Murong Bei's expression stiffened and he sighed heavily. The price she had to pay to save someone had exceeded all of his savings. Doctors could earn so much money. "Leader, here's 50 million taels of silver." Murong Bei opened the box carefully and placed 5 banknotes in front of Yun Luofeng. He then said painfully, "I've already paid you. May I know when we can start the treatment?" "You can start the treatment anytime. However, I need to make some preparations first." Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes and her lips curled into a smile. "During this period, I'll send a letter of challenge to the Sky Marshal Pavilion. The day you recover will be the day of the challenge." Murong Bei was in a daze as he subconsciously raised his head to look at Yun Luofeng. Suddenly, the young girl's eyes, which were filled with confidence, were reflected in his eyes, causing him to believe in her involuntarily. "Leader, I won't disappoint you." He understood that Yun Luofeng had taken over the Big Dipper gang so that she could head to the other shore mountain. So, how could he disappoint her? "Leader." At this moment, the door to the secret room was suddenly pushed open and Pang Fei walked in, panting. He cupped his fists and said, "Chief, the people from the Chen family have arrived. They're inviting you to the Chen residence." Hearing Pang Fei's words, a snow-white silhouette appeared in Yun Luofeng's mind. Her eyes darkened. "Murong Bei, I'll treat you later." With that, she strode out of the secret chamber. In the hall, the maidservant nervously gripped the long sword in her hand. Her beautiful face was filled with anxiety. Suddenly, her pupils contracted as she stared at the beautiful girl who had just entered the hall. Her clothes were as white as snow, and her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. Even the words peerless beauty couldn't describe her beauty. Even though she was also a woman, she couldn't help but be a little dazed when she saw such a peerless woman. This young girl had such a flawless face, it was no wonder that the master treated her so specially. She indeed had the appearance to make all the men in the world feel impulsive. The beautiful servant suppressed the sourness in her heart. She coldly stared at Yun Luofeng, who was slowly walking over, and said, "Our master invites you to the Qin family for treatment." "Is this how you treat me?" Yun Luofeng's lips curled up, and his devilish eyes swept over the maidservant. "Everyone who wants me to treat their illness must come in person. He wants me to treat him just because he sent a maid? Sorry, I don't have the time." The maidservant's expression changed slightly, as if she never expected Yun Luofeng to reject her request. She bit her lip and said, "If you save our master, the Qin family will not mistreat you. Don't you want to enter the other shore mountain? If you save our master's life, the Qin family can send you to that place." Chapter 575. Other Shore Mountain? Yun Luofeng frowned slightly as a cold glint flashed across her black eyes. Very few people knew why she came here, so why did the Qin family know so clearly? Where did this leak come from? Yun Luofeng, the beautiful maid, sensed the change in her expression and unconsciously softened her tone. She said warmly, "I know you're a smart person. You definitely know what choice is most beneficial for you." Yun Luofeng calmed herself down and the smile on her lips deepened. "I'm sorry, I think. I can also go to Other Shore Mountain with my own abilities. I don't need the Qin family's help." The beautiful maid's face instantly turned ashen. She lowered her eyes slightly, concealing the fierce glint in her eyes. Actually, she didn't come to the Big Dipper gang under Qin Yuqing's orders. After all, Qin Yuqing understood Yun Luofeng's temper from Xianxia. She also understood that if she wanted her to help, she had to take out something that could move her heart. However, she felt that the family head's illness could not wait any longer, so she decided to come to the Big Dipper gang on her own. Originally, she thought that it would be easy to get Yun Luofeng to help. In Yellow Spring City, who didn't want to curry favor with the Qin family? However, she never imagined that Yun Luofeng would actually refuse without leaving any room for negotiation. "You really won't give me a chance?" The beautiful maid bit her lip, wanting to make one last effort. Yun Luofeng glanced at her from the corner of her eyes. "If you want me to save someone, the patient must come personally. Otherwise, I definitely won't go and save him. Pang Fei, send the guest off." Her voice was very ruthless as she ordered coldly. "Yun Luofeng." The beautiful maid became anxious and said without thinking, "As a doctor, don't you know the words 'a doctor has a benevolent heart'? Are you worthy of being a doctor?" She didn't expect this woman to be so beautiful, but her heart was as vicious as a snake. She actually watched someone die without saving him. "A doctor has a benevolent heart?" Yun Luofeng laughed coldly. "Since you know my name, you must have heard about my matters. Do you think I should have a benevolent heart?" At this point, she paused, then continued, "I, Yun Luofeng, have always only saved those who should be saved. For someone as arrogant as your Qin family, I definitely won't save you. Now, are you going to walk on your own, or should I throw you out?" The beautiful maid's expression was extremely unsightly. She coldly looked at Yun Luofeng, snorted, and walked out with her sword. Pang Fei looked in the direction that the maidservant had left and asked worriedly, "Sect Master, the Qin family is the most powerful faction in Yellow Spring City. Will they take revenge on us for treating her like this?" The Qin family wouldn't dare. It wasn't that he didn't know, but that he didn't dare to. She was probably the only one in the world who could say something so domineering. Pang Fei's eyes were filled with doubt. "Sect Master, I don't quite understand. Why doesn't the Qin family dare to take revenge?" "Because..." Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. "Only I can cure the Qin family patriarch's illness. If he kills me, then he can only wait for death." In that instant, Yun Luofeng had figured out who had told the Qin family about his origins. Other than Xianxia, there was no one else. Presumably, the information that this maidservant obtained was also heard from World's Edge. Since World's Edge was unable to cure the Qin family patriarch's illness, it indirectly proved that she was the only one who could cure the Qin family patriarch. "Sect Master, then do you intend to cure the Qin family patriarch?" Pang Fei rubbed his head and asked. Chapter 576. A dangerous glint flashed across Yun Luofeng's narrowed eyes. If he wants me to treat him, he must show me his sincerity. Otherwise, I won't treat him. Pang Fei laughed bitterly. From the attitude of the Qin family's maidservant, it's clear that the Qin family has no sincerity. He didn't understand why the Qin family would come looking for the gang leader to treat him. However, no matter what, it was a fact that they had offended the Qin family today. Her attitude doesn't represent the Qin family's attitude. If the Qin family's master had really asked her to come, she wouldn't have left so dejectedly after being rejected. I'm afraid she would have turned the Big Dipper gang upside down. Because of this, Yun Luofeng could tell that the maidservant had acted on her own and that the Qin family probably didn't know about it. Pang Fei nodded, not fully understanding. The way he looked at Yun Luofeng changed from the disdain he had when they first met to worship. Just the domineering aura she had displayed when facing the Qin family's maidservant was enough to earn his respect. In the Qin family, cherry blossoms filled the courtyard. A man sat under a cherry blossom tree and calmly played the zither. His snow-white hair fluttered in the wind. He was as beautiful as a character from a painting, too much for the eyes to take in. The beautiful maidservant stood not too far away and stared foolishly at the man sitting under the cherry blossom tree. She couldn't help but feel indignant. The heavens were really too unfair. The master's hardships were finally over, but he was now afflicted with a terminal illness. Furthermore, he had encountered a doctor who would leave him in the lurch. Clang. The man stopped playing the zither and calmly asked, "Where did you go just now?" The beautiful maidservant's heart clenched and she looked a little guilty. "Master, did you go to the Big Dipper gang?" The man finally raised his head and looked at the beautiful maidservant standing to the side. His eyes were no longer as gentle as before. The coldness in his eyes caused the maidservant's heart to tremble. She knelt in front of the man with a thud. "Please forgive me, master. I only did this for the sake of master's health. Mei Qin, I thought you were a smart person. That's why I kept you by my side for so long. I never thought that you would disappoint me like everyone else." The man shook his head slightly. His tone was clearly disappointed. "Patriarch." The beautiful maid panicked and hurriedly defended herself. "This servant is really doing this for the Patriarch. Patriarch's illness cannot be delayed any longer, so this servant can only make the decision to go to the Big Dipper gang and invite her to treat his illness." The man's gaze became even more indifferent and his voice was cold as he said, "I have my own plans for what to do. As a maidservant, you made the decision for me without my permission. This kind of overstepping one's authority is unforgivable. Patriarch, please forgive this servant this time. This servant promises not to do it again." The maidservant fiercely kowtowed, her beautiful face was deathly pale. However, the man was unmoved by her almost self-harming behavior. He did not have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Of course, she did not pray that Chen Yuqing would take pity on her. On the surface, this man treated people very gently, but in reality his heart was colder than anyone else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have climbed to his current position. "Drag him away." The man's thin lips slightly opened, but the words that came out of his mouth made the maid feel as if she had fallen into the 18th level of hell, incomparably cold. She did not dare to believe that she had followed the Patriarch for so many years. In the end, he would treat her like this for the sake of a woman. "Patriarch, don't you have a heart?" Her eyes were still filled with grief and her voice was filled with accusation. "Everyone says that the Chen family's Patriarch has a gentle personality. However, only those who have interacted with you know that you're the real devil. You, on the other hand, have used your appearance to deceive everyone." Chapter 577. Chen Yuqing gently pursed his thin lips and stared indifferently at the tearful handmaiden. Even in the face of the other party's accusations, his eyes were still as calm as ever. It was as if there was no one in this world who could provoke his heart. "If you have any dissatisfaction towards me, feel free to scold me because you won't have the chance to do so in the future. However, I can spare your life on account of the many years of loyalty you've served me. At the same time, I don't want to see you again." Ever since she had taken matters into her own hands and headed to the Big Dipper Association, She was destined to lose the right to stay by his side. He doesn't need a subordinate who doesn't listen to his orders. He doesn't need someone who causes trouble everywhere. The handmaiden's body trembled. She knew what Xianxia's words meant. This meant that from today onwards, she would never be able to see this man again. Master, whatever this servant does, it's all for you. What's wrong with that? The beautiful handmaiden bit her pale lips. Could it be that my loyalty towards you is also a mistake? The man swept an indifferent glance at her. There's nothing wrong with your loyalty, but your mistake is that you're using the fact that you're a member of the Qin family to treat her rudely. The beautiful handmaiden's expression changed slightly. She instinctively took a few steps back and asked in a trembling voice, Master, you sent someone to follow me? You left the Qin family without my permission. I only wanted to know your motives. The man's voice was as calm as the wind. I never thought that you would head to the Big Dipper Association and say such things to her. As a powerful doctor, she naturally has her own pride. What right do you have to threaten her? The handmaiden's body fell limply to the ground. Cold sweat continuously trickled down her pale face, soaking her back. Men, drag her away. From now on, I don't want to see her ever again. The man slowly turned around, his back facing the handmaiden as he coldly gave the order. 2 secret guards descended from the sky and were about to pull her arm when she suddenly crawled up from the ground and slammed her palm against the top of her head. Blood flowed down her forehead and quickly covered her face, making her look extremely hideous. Asking her to leave him was equivalent to making him wish he was dead. Since that was the case, she might as well end her own life, so that the master would remember her from now on. Unfortunately, from beginning to end, the man did not turn back to look at her. His expression was cold and indifferent. Drag her down and bury her. Yes, Patriarch. The 2 shadow guards were already used to men's heartlessness. They quickly grabbed the maid's body and pulled her out of the Qin family. They found a random place and buried her. Under the cherry blossom tree, pink petals fluttered down and landed on the man's shoulder. The man flicked his finger gently and flicked the petals off his shoulder. This action was so elegant and moving, so beautiful that it didn't seem like a person. It seems like I'll have to head to the Big Dipper gang personally. He stood with his hands behind his back as he stared at the sky nearby. From afar, his celestial-like figure was akin to a peerless painting. Anyone who saw this scene would forget to breathe. In the Big Dipper Association, just when Yun Luofeng was about to start treating Murong Bei, a hurried voice rang again. The person said anxiously, Leader, the Qin family's master, Xianxia is here. She wants to see you. First, the Qin family's handmaiden had arrived. Now, even the Qin family's master has arrived. No wonder the members of the Big Dipper Association were so anxious. They were afraid that Yun Luofeng had angered Xianxia and had come to settle the score with her. Chapter 578. Sect Master, Murong Bei was stunned. He then frowned and said, If you have other matters to attend to, it won't be too late to treat me later. Pang Fei had told him the reason why the Qin family's maidservant had come. When he heard that the Qin family had also come to her for treatment, Murong Bei's thoughts became more and more active. Perhaps the sect master could really cure his body. All right. Yun Luofeng slowly turned around and said, I'll go meet the Qin family's master now. As soon as she finished speaking, she left without turning back and disappeared from Murong Bei's line of sight in the blink of an eye. As soon as he stepped into the hall, Yun Luofeng saw a man with his back facing the setting sun. This man had a head full of dazzling white hair, but it could not hide his immortal-like aura. The man sensed the movement at the door and slowly turned around. His gentle gaze enveloped the young girl who had just entered the hall like sunlight. I've heard about you from Xianxia before. The man smiled faintly. His smile was as beautiful as a painting and his eyes were as clear as a spring. However, what really made me understand you was your deceitful behavior at the auction. Yun Luofeng smiled lazily. Are you trying to avenge the forces in Netherworld City? No. Xianxia shook her head. In Netherworld City, the strong preys on the weak. The Sky Marshal Pavilion was tricked by you. That's because they're useless. It has nothing to do with me. You came here just to tell me this? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes as a light flashed across them. Chen Yuqing was taken aback. Suddenly he chuckled. This smile was enough to make everything in the world pale in comparison. It could easily stir the hearts of others. However, Yun Luofeng still liked a cold man like Yun Xiao. This was because that man would only smile at her. Actually, you know why I'm here. Chen Yuqing raised the corner of her lips. My body is reaching its limit. I had no choice but to shamelessly come to you. As long as you agree to treat my body, I can agree to any request of yours. No matter what the request is? Yun Luofeng's face lit up with an evil smile as he asked with a smile that was not a smile. For some reason, Chen Yuqing suddenly felt that something was wrong when she saw the girl's evil expression. However, she could only bite the bullet and say, no matter what your request is. I've been short on money recently. An evil light flashed through Yun Luofeng's narrowed eyes. If I sell you to the bamboo tower, I don't know how much money I can get. Chen Yuqing's expression suddenly froze. Even though she did not know what kind of place the bamboo house was, she could tell from Yun Luofeng's expression that it was definitely not a good place. Chen Yuqing coughed twice and said awkwardly, if you want the consultation fee, then we can talk about it. No matter how much it is, I can give it to you. As for the bamboo building, can we skip it? Yun Luofeng stroked her chin and sank into deep thought. She seemed to be thinking about what conditions she should ask him after saving Chen Yuqing. Chen Yuqing's eyes stared deeply at Yun Luofeng, who was deep in thought. A gentle smile appeared on her handsome face. I don't mind giving myself to you. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng finally returned to her senses. She looked Chen Yuqing up and down and raised the corner of her lips. You're even more beautiful than a woman. Too feminine. Your figure is too frail. You don't have a pair of shoulders that people can rely on. Your chest is too flat. You don't have any abdominal muscles. So, what do you think you can sell yourself to me? Chapter 579. Chen Yuqing's expression stiffened. This was the first time he had been belittled by a woman like this. But he just couldn't get angry. Who asked him to need this girl to treat his illness? Then what kind of men do you like? Chen Yuqing approached Yun Luofeng and asked with a faint smile. At that moment, a cold and callous face appeared in Yun Luofeng's mind. The corners of his lips curled involuntarily into an evil smile. I like men who are cold, simple, easy to train and have abdominal muscles. Just as Yun Luofeng finished speaking, a childish voice suddenly rang out from behind her. Mother, aren't you talking about Yun Zhao's father? Little Mo clutched Yun Luofeng's trousers tightly as he blinked innocently. Then, he inadvertently glanced at Chen Yuqing from the corner of his eyes and a trace of hostility flashed across his eyes. When Yun Xiao was not by Master's side, there would always be men who had designs on her. Every time this happened, it was time for little Mo to step in. In order to allow Master and Yun Xiao to dual cultivate, he had to nip all the seeds in the bud. Chen Yuqing looked at little Mo in surprise. This is your son? Of course, what shocked Chen Yuqing was not the relationship between little Mo and Yun Luofeng, but this child had appeared too silently. She had not noticed her presence at all. That's right. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of her lips and did not deny Chen Yuqing's words. She lowered her head and stroked little Mo's head. If you want me to treat your illness, then you have to offer me something that moves me. If you don't have something that attracts me, I won't casually save you. Chen Yuqing fell silent for a moment. Other than the Chen family, you can ask for anything else. I will satisfy you. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin and stared at Chen Yuqing with a sinister smile. Since I know Tianya, I know why I have come to Yellow Spring City. She raised her brows. After I finish my business, I will leave this place. After I leave, I plan to ask you to support the Big Dipper Group. I want the Big Dipper Group to become the #1 group in Yellow Spring. As she spoke, her gaze deepened and her arrogant brows were filled with a domineering aura. #1 in Yellow Spring. She was probably the only person in the entire Yellow Spring City who could say such arrogant words. But Chen Yuqing chuckled. All right, I promise you. It didn't matter to him whether or not the Chen family was #1 in Yellow Springs. As long as the family stood strong, it was enough. Deal. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. Ever since she had set her sights on the forces in Yellow Spring City, her goal had been to climb to the top position. Perhaps, the power of this place would become a place for her to occupy in the future. When will the treatment begin? Chen Yuqing smiled faintly and asked warmly. Your illness is a little serious. I have to make some preparations. Yun Luofeng paused. How about this? I'll give you a prescription first. You gather all the medicinal ingredients on the prescription, and 2 days later I'll go treat your illness. In addition, I will be having a duel with the Sky Marshal Pavilion in the near future. Don't get involved in this. With the Chen family's support, it was only a matter of time before the Big Dipper gang climbed to the #1 position in Yellow Springs. But before that, she would first rely on her own strength to go to Other Shore Mountain. Chen Yuqing froze and frowned. If you want to settle your personal grudge with the Sky Marshal Pavilion, then I will do as you wish. If you want to go to Other Shore Mountain, I can make the decision to send you there. No need. Yun Luofeng smiled. I prefer to rely on my own strength to get what I want. Chapter 580. Chen Yuqing's heart felt like it had been struck by something as she looked at the girl's confident eyes. He hadn't felt this way in almost 10 years. He had seen too many girls in this world, and many of them liked to cling to men. Only this girl told him that she would rely on her own strength to get what she wanted. I understand. Chen Yuqing smiled faintly. If you need anything, you can come to the Chen family to find me. In this Yellow Spring City, no one dares to say anything against me. Yun Luofeng looked at Chen Yuqing and nodded lightly. Only I can save your life. If I really need your help, I'll ask. But this Other Shore Mountain, I can rely on my own strength to enter. Chen Yuqing didn't say anything else, but there was a tinge of admiration in her eyes. I'll wait for you at the Chen family tomorrow. With that, she took one last look at Yun Luofeng before turning around and walking out of the hall. Not even a moment later, that celestial-like figure disappeared under the bright sunlight with his soul ring. The moonlit night was like water. A man stood with his hands behind his back in the Chen family's residence. He stood under the moonlight, and his crescent-colored robes fluttered in the night wind. Go and find out everything about Yun Luofeng. Bring it to me in 2 days. Yes, master. In the dark, a guard cupped his fists respectfully. His figure quickly disappeared, and he became one with the night. Even Chen Yuqing didn't understand. After seeing Yun Luofeng today, she really wanted to know about her past. He also wanted to understand what had happened to this young girl that caused her to be so independent and self-reliant. It had to be said that the people of the Chen family were very efficient. In 2 days, the guard had already passed a set of information to Chen Yuqing. As she read the information, Chen Yuqing's brows furrowed even tighter, and the warm smile on her face disappeared. Her parents were killed when she was 4, and her uncle provoked a strong enemy, causing him to be crippled for 10 years. He also hid for 10 years. And her grandfather also led an army to the battlefield when she was 4. He left her alone at home, and she was bullied and humiliated. She even broke off the engagement. Rumor has it that she changed after her grandfather returned in triumph. Not only did he show off his great talent in medicine, but he also established a huge army under the threat of the royal family. His innate talent was also able to break through the limit. It was rumored that she had been pretending to be weak all these years. Later on, when General Yun returned, she gradually revealed her talent. It was hard to imagine how a 4-year-old child had survived those 10 years. If she had not hidden her innate talent, she would have been killed long ago in this ruthless mainland. Of course, no one in the world knew that the Yun Luofeng of the past was already dead, and she was merely a soul from another world. Patriarch, this is all the information on her. The shadow guard stood respectfully behind Chen Yuqing and said expressionlessly. Chen Yuqing continued to read. When he heard that everyone said that Yun Luofeng had forced an innocent girl to become a prostitute, forcing his own maid to marry a bodyguard, he couldn't help but laugh. Forcing a girl to become a prostitute? That does seem to be the case. Wasn't that right? Before, Yun Luofeng had said that he would sell him to the bamboo house. Wasn't this forcing a girl to become a prostitute? However, a person like her wouldn't force her own maidservant. Later, Go and investigate where these rumors came from. Chapter 581. Yes, master. The secret guard hurriedly joined his fists and replied respectfully when he saw Chen Yuqing's solemn expression. All right, you may leave. Today is the day she's here to treat my illness. Go and welcome her at the door. Yes, master. The secret guard joined his fists again and silently retreated. Chen Yuqing's lips curled into an arc as she watched the secret guard leave. No one knew what she was thinking about in her black pupils. After a long pause, he rose to his feet, picked up the guqin and walked out of the study. The sound of the guqin echoed throughout the entire cherry blossom forest. Tang Yu hid not too far away as she stared at Chen Yuqing's flawless features with infatuated eyes. Her eyes were filled with adoration. This man was not only perfect in appearance, he was also of noble status. If she could marry him, she would have no regrets in her life. Tang Yu's foot accidentally stepped on a branch on the ground and made a muffled sound. She had accidentally disturbed the man who was wholeheartedly playing the guqin. Even though the man had sensed Tang Yu's aura from the beginning, the Chen family's servants would often pass by this area, so he had not paid much attention to it. Now that he had heard her voice, he could not help but frown and stop playing the zither. Who is it? The man's voice was very pleasant, like the ripples of a clear spring, causing Tang Yu's heart to tremble. Tang Yu bit her lip and walked out from behind the fake mountain. She purposely hid the infatuation in her eyes and a lovable smile appeared on her face. I am Elder Chen Tian's new disciple. I was attracted by Patriarch Chen's zither and unknowingly came here. If I have disturbed Patriarch Chen, I will leave immediately. She first revealed her identity to prove that she was not an outsider. Then, she told Chen Yuqing that it was his guqin that had captivated her, not him. In the end, she was reasonable and said that if she had disturbed Chen Yuqing, she could leave. No man would be willing to let such a sensible woman leave. He might even invite her to sit down and play the guqin together. Just as Tang Yu was daydreaming, the man's gentle voice slowly rang out. Oh, then forgive me for not seeing you off. Tang Yu's expression froze. What does he mean? Is he chasing me away? She had already behaved so sensibly. Logically speaking, shouldn't he let her stay? Moreover, there weren't many women like her in the entire Yellow Spring City who were so beautiful without any makeup. Was he really that heartless? Suddenly, Tang Yu remembered what Chen Tian had said to her 2 days ago. You have to remember that the patriarch likes honest and straightforward women. You have to act like this even if you want to. He was allergic to cosmetics, and he hated it even more when women wore cosmetics. In addition, if you arouse his interest, then you must begin to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Only this will allow you to capture his heart. Master, how do you understand it so clearly? Because there was once a woman who did it. Tang Yu took a deep breath and said, Patriarch Chen, since you want me to leave, I'll leave now. I just felt that your zither sound was more pleasant to listen to. I didn't mean anything else. Because I, Tang Yu, am not the kind of woman who likes to play up to the rich and powerful. Before this, I didn't know that you were the one playing the zither here. Chapter 582. Tang Yu believed that Chen Yuqing must have assumed that she had come here to seduce him. Even though she did have such intentions, she could never show it. Tang Yu turned around to leave after saying her piece. Wait. Just as she was about to leave, a calm voice chimed in from behind. Tang Yu was overjoyed. Her heart felt like it was about to leap out of her chest. Her eyes were filled with excitement. She wanted nothing more than to turn around and run to Chen Yuqing's side. However, when she remembered her master's words, she suppressed the strong urge in her heart and forced herself not to turn around. Only by loosening the reins can a man's heart be seduced. Tang Yu steadied her emotions and feigned indifference as she asked, Is there anything else, Master Chen? Chen Yuqing chuckled gently. His laughter was like a hand, tickling Tang Yu's heart and causing her body to turn limp. Did Chen Tian teach you to say these things? There was a smile on his face, but his tone was very cold. Tang Yu could not figure out what this man was thinking. You? What do you mean by that? Did she ask you to feign innocence and loosen the reins only to grasp them better? The man's voice made Tang Yu feel as if she had been plunged into hell. She quickly turned around and looked at the handsome face. I don't understand what you're talking about. She bit her lip and her face turned slightly pale. Chen Yuqing smiled calmly and spoke with a profound meaning. If my guess is correct, Chen Tian has told you many things. He even asked you to imitate someone. Did he not tell you that that person had betrayed me? Do you think that I would fall for your bewitchment? Tang Yu widened her eyes in shock and could not help but take a few steps back. Her face was full of horror as she said in a trembling voice, I was only attracted by your music. I don't have any feelings for you. Why did you misunderstand me like this? You can speak insincerely, but your eyes will never lie. So, the first time I saw you, I could see your thoughts clearly from your eyes. Hence, no matter what you do, I will never be attracted to you. Tang Yu gently closed her eyes. She had thought that she had covered it up very well, but she had still been discovered by this man who could see through everything. The sad thing was that she had pretended to be indifferent towards him. Little did she know that he was watching her make a fool of herself. Tang Yu was in a sorry state. She did not dare to stay any longer. She hastily ran out of the forest. Her tears involuntarily flowed out, drenching her face. She ran so fast that when she stepped out of the door, she accidentally tripped over the threshold and her body fell straight forward. At this moment, she saw a figure appear in front of her. She hurriedly tried to pull the other party's sleeve, wanting to use the other party's strength to help her stabilize herself. Unexpectedly, when the man saw her falling figure, he instinctively dodged to the side and dodged. Thump! Tang Yu was sprawled on the ground in a disheveled manner. She got to her feet angrily and glared at the adorable little boy in front of her. Little wimp, do you even have a little upbringing? Don't you know that you should admire Auntie when you see her fall? Is this what your mother taught you? Xiao Emo glanced at Tang Yu coldly with a hint of disdain in his eyes. He would never forget how this woman had humiliated his master during the auction. If it weren't for the fact that he had to hide from Lin Rubai, he would have torn her apart long ago. Chapter 583. You're the one who fell and you want to drag someone down with you. You're so heavy. If you drag me down with you, I'll be crippled even if I don't die. Little Mo curled his lips and spoke icily. Tang Yu's expression changed completely and her entire body trembled with anger. This damned boy, how dare he say that I'm heavy? If you don't have a good upbringing, I don't mind teaching you a lesson on behalf of your mother. Tang Yu raised her hand and was about to fling it at little Mo when a hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed her wrist tightly. Immediately after, an evil voice suddenly sounded out, causing Tang Yu's body to stiffen. It looks like you don't want your hand anymore, just like Tian Yu. The young girl's lips curled into a smile as she narrowed her eyes and looked at Tang Yu. Tang Yu turned around in shock. When she saw Yun Luofeng's peerlessly beautiful face, she felt as if her heart had been struck by a fierce blow. An unprecedented rage welled up in her heart. Yun Luofeng, what are you doing here? She had only noticed little Mo earlier and had not noticed Yun Luofeng at all. She never thought that she would appear in this place. I know, you must be here to seduce Master Chen. Tang Yu suddenly reacted and glared at Yun Luofeng in disgust. You're disgusting. There are so many men here and yet you won't let Master Chen off. How can a shameless woman like you still have the face to live in this world? Little Mo could not help but laugh. His brows were very attractive and his laughter softened people's hearts. This is the first time I've seen someone who's shameless enough to humiliate others. Aren't you ashamed? Little Mo scratched his little face and made a funny face at Tang Yu. Tang Yu was so angry that she wanted to step forward. However, her wrist was being held tightly by Yun Luofeng. She could even hear the sound of her bones cracking. Get lost! The young girl yelled. Tang Yu's body was then hit by a wave of spiritual energy and she was sent flying out of the way before crashing onto the ground. Yun Luofeng looked at Tang Yu's pale face and curled the corners of his lips. His voice was arrogant and unruly. I've already sent a letter of challenge to Sky Martial Court. In a few days, Sky Martial Court will be destroyed and you still have the leisure to come to the Chen family? Tang Yu snorted disapprovingly. Yun Luofeng, you won't succeed in seducing the Chen family head. Master had already said that he wouldn't let Yun Luofeng seduce Chen Yuqing. Even if she couldn't become the wife of the Chen family's patriarch, she would at least be the disciple of one of the Chen family's elders. Her status was more than twice as high as hers. What qualifications did she have to fight with him? Furthermore, I reckon that you can't even step through the gates of the Chen family. If you want to see the Chen family patriarch, it will be impossible even in your next life. Tang Yu crawled up from the ground and looked at Yun Luofeng with a cold smile. Just as she finished speaking, a cold voice suddenly rang out from the side, causing Tang Yu's expression to turn ferocious on the spot. My apologies, Miss Tang. Miss Yun is a guest invited by our family. If you are disrespectful to her, then I can only expel you from the Chen family forever, never to take a step back. The secret guard who had been observing the situation from the shadows all this while slowly walked out. He walked around Tang Yu and walked in front of Yun Luofeng. He cupped his fists respectfully and said, Miss Yun, the patriarch has ordered this subordinate to wait here. Please follow me, Miss Yun. Our patriarch has been waiting for you for a long time. All right. Yun Luofeng nodded his head and held little Mo's hand as he stepped through the Chen family's high threshold. Chapter 584. Stop! Tang Yu looked a little anxious as she stood in front of Yun Luofeng. What have you done? Why would Master Chen want to see you? Yun Luofeng frowned. Move. Tell me first. Before Tang Yu could finish her sentence, Yun Luofeng raised her leg and kicked her, sending her flying several feet away. She then straightened her robes and said, It's finally quiet. Let's continue. All right. The secret guard returned to his senses from his shock. He never thought that this young girl would kick him without saying a word. Miss Yun, this way please. Remembering the master's attitude towards her, the secret guard did not dare to show any disrespect. He made a welcoming gesture and led the way for Yun Luofeng. From afar, Yun Luofeng could see a man playing the guqin under a cherry blossom tree. His long, snow-white hair was dyed with a few flower petals. He was so beautiful that it seemed unreal. You're here? Chen Yuqing stopped playing the guqin when she saw Yun Luofeng appear. She raised her head and looked at him. Her handsome face lit up with a smile. Yun Luofeng gently raised her brow as she stared at the man's immortal-like figure. Have you prepared the herbs that I asked you to? I've already prepared it. However, I've never told you what's wrong with my body. How are you able to understand it so clearly? Chen Yuqing had wanted to ask her about this before. Furthermore, seeing that she didn't know much about the Yellow Spring City, Tianya probably hadn't told her about it either. You've only been given a slow-acting poison. However, that poison is a little special. It's not something that can be treated with ordinary detoxification techniques. Yun Luofeng gently stroked his chin. May I ask you, who was the one who poisoned you? The smile on Chen Yuqing's face slowly disappeared and was replaced with indifference. Just as Yun Luofeng thought that he would not answer, the man calmly replied, It was someone I had once saved. Perhaps it was because he was recalling the past. A sense of sorrow appeared between his brows. That year, she had entered Yellow Spring City by mistake and was severely injured. I happened to pass by and saved her. At that time, she was cute, straightforward, and didn't bother about trifles. In particular, her ambiguous attitude towards me made me involuntarily fall in love with her, and she also accepted me. Unfortunately, good times don't last long. She provoked a powerful enemy, and in order to protect her, the entire Chen family was almost buried. My parents also lost their lives in that battle. But I didn't blame her. After all, no matter what I did it willingly. She was also innocent. But later, I found out that she kept putting poison in my food. His goal is to occupy my Chen family. However, I couldn't bear to harm her in the end, and I merely drove her out of Nether Spring City. After that, I was unable to find out where she went. For the sake of this woman, his parents had lost their lives and the Chen family had almost collapsed. But in the end, they had only saved an ingrate. After she left, I realized that her naivety and straightforwardness was all an act. She was deliberately being lukewarm to me. She was playing hard to get. I was her target from the very beginning. Of course, just obtaining my trust wasn't enough. Even the expert who came to the Chen family that time was also sent by her. The reason why my parents lost their lives. It was also because she had poisoned my parents' bowls, causing them to be unable to use their spiritual energy and could only let others do whatever they wanted. Chapter 585. Originally, she wanted me and my parents to die together at that time. However, I had a mission at that time and left the Qin family. As this mission was very serious, I didn't tell her at that time. That's how I escaped this calamity. How unbearable was the taste of being betrayed, especially when that person was someone he trusted wholeheartedly. Chen Yuqing recalled those unbearable past events and lowered her eyelids slightly as she said faintly, ever since she was chased out of the Qin family, she couldn't poison me anymore. But at that time, a lot of poison had already gathered in my body. So, even if she had already left, that poison was still devouring my life. Of course, if Chen Yuqing didn't discover her plot back then, perhaps, she would have died a few years ago. Yun Luofeng felt some pity for Chen Yuqing and looked at her pitifully. Chen Yuqing clearly noticed his gaze and couldn't help but laugh. Why are you looking at me like that? It's already been so many years towards her, I've long forgotten. Moreover, a person who betrayed me isn't worth remembering. Compared to that woman, he admired Yun Luofeng more now. Because, no matter what Yun Luofeng wanted, she would rely on her own strength to get it and not snatch it from the hands of others. This point no one could ignore. I've more or less understood your poison. But, I can tell you clearly, the poison in that woman's hands is very rare. No, it should have disappeared for almost a few thousand years. So, her background isn't simple. No wonder Xianxia couldn't detoxify Chen Yuqing. If she didn't have the divine book of medicine, she would probably be helpless too. Because there were no records of this kind of poisonous grass on the mainland now. So where did the method to detoxify come from? This poison is... Chen Yuqing was stunned for a moment and frowned. This poison is ground using soul-eater grass and dragon heart as the main ingredients. It's colorless and odorless, hard to detect. But I do have the method to detoxify it. I'm just reminding you, that woman's background isn't that simple. She used all sorts of methods to obtain the Qin family. Could it be that there was something in the Qin family that attracted her? Anyway, no matter what, it wasn't as simple as wanting to be the Qin family's family head. Chen Yuqing smiled helplessly. I had already chased her out back then. There has been no news of her for 10 years, so I don't know what her motives are. Yun Luofeng's lips twitched. No matter what that woman's motive was, it had nothing to do with her. I can start your treatment now. During the treatment, no one is allowed to disturb him. I understand. Chen Yuqing nodded slightly and said to the dark guard beside her, go guard outside and don't allow anyone to enter this forest. Yes, Patriarch. The secret guard cupped his fists and quickly walked out. He was like an immovable mountain standing outside the forest, blocking many of the Qin family's disciples who wanted to enter the forest. The reason why the Qin family was superior to the other families was that they had a team of doctors. If the doctors from this team of doctors were to be taken out, it would cause all the major powers to fight over them. However, so many famous doctors were all recruited by the Qin family. At this moment, Qin Tian was sitting in his room in the courtyard of the medical team. He was holding a book in his hands, and his brows were tightly furrowed. Chapter 586. Master. Suddenly, an aggrieved voice rang out from the doorway, causing Qin Tian to put down the book in his hand and raise his head to look at the woman who was walking quickly into the room. Yuer, what happened? Tang Yu felt so aggrieved that tears were about to roll down her cheeks. She bit her lip and held back her tears. Master, I was about to go home, but who would have thought that I would bump into Yun Luofeng as soon as I stepped out of the door? Yun Luofeng? Qin Tian looked at her in surprise. What is Yun Luofeng doing here? Tang Yu shook her head and replied pitifully, I'm not sure either. All I know is that the master has sent someone to bring her here. Furthermore, she has a child by her side. If my guess is right, that child should be his son. Master, do you think that the master has fallen for Yun Luofeng? What? Qin Tian was enraged. He slammed the table and rose to his feet as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Has the master gone senile? He actually invited such a vile woman to the Qin family. No, I can't just sit here and wait for my death. Let's go and see the master now. Yes, master. A light flashed in Tang Yu's eyes as she laughed silently. Yun Luofeng, you are just a powerless person. What right do you have to fight against me? You will never be able to defeat me in this lifetime. Just as Qin Tian and Tang Yu reached the edge of the cherry blossom forest, their path was blocked. The secret guard's face was expressionless as he stared coldly at the two people in front of him and said icily, "The master has ordered that no one is allowed to enter and disturb him and Miss Yun." What the dark guard said was to treat the illness, but when it fell into the ears of others, it became something shameful. Chen Tian's expression changed on the spot. What kind of secret guard are you? How could you allow the master to be bewitched by a vixen? Get out of the way, I want to go in and see the master. Without the master's orders, no one is allowed to enter. The secret guard could not be bothered to explain. His expression remained cold and resolute. He was like a mountain that stood in front of Qin Tian, making it impossible for him to cross it. Impudent. Qin Tian's expression grew increasingly ugly. You're just a small secret guard. What right do you have to stop me? I'm ordering you to open a path right now. The secret guard's lips curled into a mocking smile. The only one who can order me around is the patriarch. In other words, he would only listen to the orders of the patriarch and no one else was allowed to overstep their bounds. Boom! An imposing aura gradually surged from Qin Tian's body. As the aura spread, the tender petals on the ground were swept into the sky. That vixen isn't a good person. If you don't get out of the way, don't blame me for being rude. The dark guard's eyes were filled with ridicule. I still stand by my words. Without the patriarch's order, I will not give in even if I die. These were the Chen family's secret guards. Other than Qin Yuqing, no one else could order them to move. As for Qin Yuqing's words, they would carry them out even if they had to die. Did that vixen give you something that made you help her seduce the patriarch? Chen Tian scoffed coldly. However, I can't just sit back and do nothing about this. There's no way you can stop me. The secret guard glanced coldly at Qin Tian. He placed his finger on his lips and whistled. Instantly, countless figures in black appeared in the sky and slowly floated down to the ground. Chapter 587. Chen Tian's expression changed drastically. He gritted his teeth and said, "The secret guards? You actually called out the secret guards? I really want to know what that woman promised you for you to help her so much." The secret guard furrowed his brows. "I've said it before, I only listen to the master's orders. If the master allows you to enter, I will let you in immediately. If not, I will never let you in." Chen Tian's eyes darkened and he clenched his fists tightly. There is no one in this world who is immune to illness. I hope that all of you will be immune to all diseases in the future. Otherwise, the doctors will never treat the secret guards. Let's go. He snorted and turned around to leave. Tang Yu clenched her fists tightly and said unwillingly, "Master, are we just going to let it go?" "Let it go? How could that be?" Chen Tian laughed icily. "The secret guards are very powerful. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight them head-on. Besides, didn't Yun Luofeng send a letter of challenge to the Sky Martial Court? That will be the day she dies. He would never allow a woman like this to enter the Chen family, especially when this woman has a child with her." Tang Yu bit down on her lower lip as she glanced at the cherry blossom forest behind her. Every time she thought of Yun Luofeng and Qin Yuqing being lovey-dovey in the forest, she felt as if her heart had been pierced by a needle. Chen Tian naturally understood Tang Yu's pain. He patted her shoulder and comforted her. You have to get over it. How many men in this world only have one woman? It is normal for him to have sex with someone else. Don't take it to heart. Just remember that you are the future mistress of the Chen family. Even so, how could she not feel the pain when the man she loved was in the same room with another woman? She could not wait to tear that slut's face apart. However, she did not do so. She looked away sadly, lowered her head and said, "Master, I understand. I won't take it to heart because Yun Luofeng and him are destined to never be together." Tang Yu was right about that. Yun Luofeng and Qin Yuqing were destined to never be together. Because she already had Yun Xiao. However, in Tang Yu's heart, Yun Luofeng was unworthy of Chen Yuqing. The two people in the forest were completely unaware of what was happening outside. After a long time, Yun Luofeng finally pulled out the silver needles from the man's body and carefully wrapped them up with a handkerchief. He raised his head and said, "Today's treatment is complete. From now on, I will come every 2 days. Until your body recovers." Chen Yuqing put on her clothes, a gentle smile in her eyes. "All right, I'll wait for you at the Chen clan." "Oh right, when will you make your move against the Sky Martial Pavilion?" Yun Luofeng's hand that was putting away the silver needles paused. "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Chen Yuqing smiled. "Is there anything I can help you with?" "No need." After putting away the silver needles, Yun Luofeng once again raised his head. "It's getting late, I'll go back and rest first. Also, during the treatment, you can't use spiritual power, otherwise the consequences will be severe." Then she held Little Mo's hand and smiled. "Little Mo, let's go home." "Go home?" Little Mo pursed his lips. He couldn't help but shudder at the thought of Lin Rubai. After leaving the Chen family, he would return to the Divine Grimoire space to avoid encountering that little witch. Chapter 588. Recently, the entire Netherworld city had been in a state of shock because of one incident. First, the newly appointed representative of Netherworld City had provoked the Sky Martial Pavilion at the auction and even chopped off someone's arm. Now, he had issued a challenge to the Sky Martial Pavilion. The day of the challenge was tomorrow. Tang Ran read the contents of the challenge hundreds of times before tearing it into pieces. His gaze was dark. "Yun Luofeng, I want to see what you have to challenge me." "Pavilion Master." Suddenly, a servant rushed in and half knelt on the ground. "Master, young mistress has just returned in tears." Returned in tears?" Tang Ran was furious. He slammed his hand on the table and stood up with a cold expression. "Who bullied her?" "I don't know, but young mistress went to young master cousin's room after she returned," the servant replied respectfully. "It has been a while now." Tang Ran frowned. He waved his sleeves and walked out of the hall, heading towards the backyard. In the room, the incense burner on the table emitted light smoke, filling the entire room with a fragrant aroma. Tang Yu looked down at the man lying on the bed and asked with concern, "Cousin, how are you? Are you feeling better these days?" Tang Yu was sincere towards Tian Yu. After all, Tian Yu's arm had been chopped off by Yun Luofeng because of her. Perhaps it was because of the incense, but Tian Yu's breathing was not normal. His face was flushed, no longer as pale as before. Suddenly, Tian Yu reached out and grabbed Tang Yu's arm tightly. Tang Yu panicked for a moment. She quickly tried to pull her hand out, but he only tightened his grip on it. "Cousin, what are you doing?" I want the..." Tian Yu did not know where he got the strength to pull Tang Yu onto the bed and pressed his sickly body against Tang Yu's. In the past, Tang Yu would have flown into a rage and beat up the man in front of her. But now, for some reason, her heart was beating faster. Her body was so hot that she could not help but want to take off her clothes. A piercing pain spread throughout her body, causing her to tremble uncontrollably. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly as cold sweat rolled down her forehead. Her body was left for Chen Yuqing. She could not be disrespected by any man. However, even though she thought that way in her heart, her body could not help but cooperate with him. Over time, it actually produced a kind of pleasure. An old voice came from inside the room. Then, the tightly shut door was pushed open and Tang Ran walked in with large strides. However, when he saw what was happening in the room, he was enraged. He shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" No one heard what they said. The two of them were still moving on the bed. At this moment, they were not like humans, but like animals in heat. Tang Ran finally sensed that something was amiss. He hurriedly strode forward and knocked the two of them unconscious. He then separated the two of them from each other. His gaze then swept towards the incense burner in the room, bang. With a sweep of his hand, Tang Ran pushed the incense burner to the ground. At the same time, the two people who were knocked unconscious gradually regained consciousness. Chapter 589. Recalling everything that had just happened, Tang Yu shrieked, "Ah!" She had sex with Tianyu? And she was enjoying it so much? What's going on? Tianyu rubbed his throbbing temples. He couldn't help but recall the scene just now. His expression immediately changed. He hurriedly climbed down from the bed and knelt in front of Tang Ran. Grandfather, I don't know why I did such a beastly thing. It was as if I had no choice. I really didn't mean to bully my cousin. You bastard! Tang Yu picked up a pillow and threw it at Tianyu, wailing bitterly. I've treated you so well and yet you did such a beastly thing. Tianyu, go to hell. Knowing Qin Yuqing's misophobic personality, she would hate her even more if she knew that she had an affair with another man. And this was something she could not accept no matter what. Tianyu let Tang Yu hit and scolded him. He bit his lip and silently endured everything. Enough! Tang Ran's expression darkened and he shouted coldly, what can we do now that it's already happened? Do you want to make a big fuss and let everyone know? Besides, this isn't Tianyu's fault. You've been plotted against. Tianyu's body fell to the ground in a sorry state. He could not remember when he had been plotted against. Wah! Tang Yu cried bitterly, Grandfather, what should I do? Master Qin doesn't like me. Now he's been bewitched by that bitch, Yun Luofeng. If he finds out that I've lost my chastity, how can I marry him? Regardless of the reason, on this mainland, a woman who lost her chastity before marriage was a slut. It was a shameful existence to everyone. Even if she had lost her chastity unwillingly. Tang Ran frowned. It looks like we've underestimated Yun Luofeng. Master Yun was actually bewitched by her. However, you can't let anyone know that you've lost your chastity. Also, be more careful in the future. You can't let anyone know that your virginity has disappeared. Tang Yu bit her lip as her eyes were filled with hatred. If I find out who's behind this, I won't let them off so easily. If I don't tear her into pieces, I won't be able to dispel the hatred in my heart. Just as Tang Yu was cursing viciously, the culprit behind this incident strolled into the Big Dipper gang leisurely. Xiaobai, where did you go just now? Just as Lin Ruobai's foot stepped through the door, a sinister laugh rang out in front of her. She raised her head in a daze and blinked her big bright eyes. I took milk tea out for a walk. Is that so? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly and asked with a faint smile. Lin Ruobai was a little guilty. It's true. If you don't believe me, you can ask milk tea. After saying this, she placed the milk tea in front of Yun Luofeng. Milk tea wanted to cry but had no tears. It really wanted to tell its master that it wasn't willing. It was forced by its master's disciple. How could a kind rat like it do something like poisoning? You went out for a walk. Why do I smell an aphrodisiac on your bodies? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and smiled sinisterly. Tell me the truth. What did you do just now? Chapter 590. Master, this has nothing to do with me. Lin Ruobai pushed milk tea away without any sense of loyalty. It's all milk tea's fault. It couldn't stand the sight of Tang Yu and Tianyu, so it decided to teach them a lesson. That's why it decided to have the two of them get together. I'm just an accomplice. Oh no, I'm not even an accomplice. I'm just a passerby. Squeak squeak. Milk tea did not expect Lin Ruobai to be so disloyal. She even pushed all the blame onto herself. She immediately squeaked in protest, her face full of grievance. Alright, I don't care whose idea it was. In the future, without my order, you are not allowed to do such a thing. Yun Luofeng glanced at the man and the mouse. If you really want to go, you must be brought by me. Otherwise, if you fall into the hands of the Sky Marshal Court, I will have to go and save you. Lin Ruobai stuck out her tongue. Master, I know I was wrong. She understood that Yun Luofeng was worried that they would fall into the Sky Marshal Court's trap. Because of this, she brought milk tea along. Go and rest. Prepare for tomorrow's battle. Battle? Lin Ruobai's eyes immediately lit up. Master, can I join? Sure, but you must stay by my side when the time comes. Yun Luofeng looked at Lin Ruobai's excited expression and could not help but smile. All right, Master. When will little Mo return? Lin Ruobai seemed to remember her future husband and pouted. Ever since little Mo returned to the Divine Grimoire, Yun Luofeng had found an excuse to say that she had given little Mo a mission and he needed to leave the team temporarily. Lin Ruobai believed it and spent the next few days asking little Mo when she would return. Facing Lin Ruobai's bright eyes, Yun Luofeng sighed silently. I'm not sure either. As soon as Lin Ruobai left, little Mo would immediately appear. However, if she told the truth, she would definitely hurt this little girl's heart. Alright. Lin Ruobai was a little depressed, but she quickly pulled herself together. It's okay. As long as I stay by Master's side, I will definitely see little brother little Mo. It was obvious that she was very fond of little Mo. However, this fondness was not the love between a man and a woman. After all, at her age, she did not know what love was. Yun Luofeng took the milk tea from Lin Ruobai's hands and gently pinched its little body. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Ji. Milk tea called out twice and hugged her paws lightly as if she was praying. Useless. Yun Luofeng ignored the little guy's cute act and smiled dangerously. If you mess around with little white again, I don't mind turning you into a roasted rat. Milk tea hurriedly shook her head. What she meant was that she would never compromise because of Lin Ruobai's threats. It would never be a rat that disobeyed its master's orders again. Yun Luofeng stuffed the milk tea into his sleeves, turned around, and stepped through the doorsill, walking towards Murong Bei's cultivation room. At this moment, in the cultivation room, Murong Bei opened his eyes and looked at the young lady who had pushed the door open. A smile appeared on his face. Sect leader, you're here? Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. Today is the last day of your treatment. After today, you will be able to cultivate like a normal person. However, are you ready to fight against the Sky Martial Court? Murong Bei's eyes lit up and he looked very excited. I've been waiting for this day for too long. Sect leader, not only am I ready to fight against the Sky Martial Court, I'm also willing to follow you to conquer the world. Chapter 591. Alright. I hope that you'll always have this awareness. Yun Luofeng raised his brows and looked down at Murong Bei, who was sitting cross-legged. Also, there's one thing you must remember. I, Yun Luofeng, will never accept betrayal. Since I have the ability to heal you now, I can also kill you without you realizing it. If I find out that you have the slightest intention of betrayal, I'll make sure that you won't even have the chance to go to hell. Murong Bei's heart trembled. He did not dare to underestimate her at all, much less betray her. Don't worry, leader. I'll never betray you. All right, Yun Luofeng nodded. Also, you can only obey my orders unconditionally. If you don't obey even once. If you don't obey me, I'll never use you again. You'll lose a chance to reach the peak. At that moment, the young girl's eyes were filled with arrogance and her pitch-black eyes were filled with confidence. She was the only person in the world who would dare to say something like that in such a domineering manner. After all, how could someone who even the Chen family had to suck up to not have the ability to reach the peak? Murong Bei believed that he would not regret following her for the rest of his life. I'll never disobey your orders, leader. Remember every single word you've said. Yun Luofeng curled the corners of his lips. Now, let's begin the treatment. Murong Bei was stunned. The moment he thought about how he would be able to return to normal, a raging fire burned in his eyes. All these years, the Big Dipper gang had been suppressed for too long. From now on, he would once again appear before the eyes of the world. The person who had brought all of this to him was the young girl before him. The next day, the plaza of Yellow Spring City was already filled with people. Everyone was whispering to each other as they discussed with curiosity in their eyes. The people from the Sky Martial Court are here. Why hasn't the Big Dipper gang arrived yet? Are they afraid? If that's the case, I'm afraid they'll be greatly embarrassed. That's right. The Big Dipper gang was the one who challenged them this time. In the end, they actually admitted defeat. If that's the case, the Big Dipper gang can forget about staying in Netherworld City. As soon as this person finished speaking, the entire square suddenly fell silent. Everyone turned to look and saw Yun Luofeng leading the Big Dipper gang in their direction. On her left was the previous leader of the Big Dipper gang, Murong Bei, and on her right was the adorable Lin Ruobai. Seeing Yun Luofeng's appearance, The plaza that had originally calmed down became incredibly noisy once more. It seems like the rumors are true. Murong Bei has passed the Big Dipper gang to a young lady. This girl looks to be around 15 years old. Won't the Big Dipper gang be as good as useless in her hands? Actually, that might not be the case. When I attended the Xianxia auction, the Big Dipper gang's gang leader tricked the people from the Sky Marshal Pavilion. You didn't see the scene at that time. Talon from the Sky Marshal Pavilion was really pitiful. Hearing this person's words, everyone was disdainful. What's so great about playing tricks? In Yellow Spring City, one has to rely on their own strength. If she doesn't have enough strength, the Big Dipper gang will perish. Murong Bei heard the crowd's discussion and could not help but frown. His sharp gaze swept across the people who were discussing. When everyone met his gaze, they quickly quieted down and only whispered into the ears of the people next to them. Chapter 592. Hee hee. Tang Ran laughed mockingly when he saw Murong Bei walking toward him. I thought the Big Dipper Association was scared and didn't dare to come. Murong Bei laughed coldly. I was feeling a little unwell earlier, and the leader was treating me. That's why I was delayed. He was telling the truth. As the last step of treatment was extremely difficult, they spent the whole night treating him. They only completed the treatment just now and he could absorb spiritual energy again. That was why he was delayed for a while. However, why would the others believe Murong Bei's words? They would think that he was looking for an excuse. Murong Bei, today is the day the Big Dipper Association will be destroyed. This is the consequence of handing the Big Dipper Association over to this woman. Sush. As soon as he finished speaking, the people behind Tang Ran drew their weapons and faced off against the Big Dipper gang. Murong Bei. Yun Luofeng crossed his arms and smiled lazily. End this quickly. Yes, leader. End this quickly? Tang Ran was infuriated when he heard that. He glared at Yun Luofeng coldly. I'd like to see how long you can be so arrogant. I'll deal with you after I kill Murong Bei. He said it very casually as if killing Murong Bei was an extremely easy thing to do. Ha! Murong Bei laughed maniacally. Tang Ran, the Sky Marshal Pavilion is not qualified to enter the top 10 in Netherworld City. Now, you should give me back my position. Sush. He quickly took out his chain weapon and threw it at Tang Ran. With a loud bang, the chain smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Tang Ran took a few steps back, and his expression turned serious. You broke through. This guy has broken through to an intermediate heavenly spirit warrior? That's right. I just happened to break through when I came here. Murong Bei smiled and waved the chain in his hand again. The chain was like a snake in his hand as he moved it with ease. Tang Ran's expression changed. After a few years, Murong Bei had broken through again. No wonder the Big Dipper Association dared to challenge the Sky Marshal Pavilion. It was because of his breakthrough. He still did not believe what Murong Bei had said. If he had only broken through this morning, how would he have dared to issue a challenge in advance? With his previous strength, it was impossible for him to defeat him. Murong Bei, I have already been in the middle stage of the Celestial Spirit Warrior for 2 years, and have more or less grasped this realm. You are just a person who has just broken through to this stage. How can you defeat me? Tang Ran sneered. In a moment, I'll let you know that even within the same realm, there is still a huge gap. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately drew his weapon and appeared in front of Murong Bei in a flash. War was on the verge of breaking out. Seeing that the battle had begun, the people from both sides pulled out their weapons and joined the battle. Not long after, the sounds of fighting spread throughout the square, and people fell from time to time. Battles had always been cruel. If there were no battles, it would be impossible for them to grow. That was why Yellow Spring City had become so chaotic. It was normal for the two forces to fight each other. Everyone was used to it. Xiao Bai. Yun Luofeng took out some spiritual herbs from his sleeve and passed them to Lin Rubai. He said, if you see anyone injured, pass these spiritual herbs to them. Let them eat them. Chapter 593. War was indeed cruel. However, this did not mean that Yun Luofeng would watch helplessly as her subordinates died in battle. Even if there were still a few casualties, It would be best to reduce them as much as possible. Master, what's the use of these? Lin Ruobai blinked and asked curiously. There's no need to ask too much. Just pass them to the injured. This is your task today. Wake me up after the battle ends. I'll sleep for a while. After saying this, Yun Luofeng found a secluded place to sit down. She leaned lazily against the tree behind her and closed her eyes to rest. Everyone was stunned. Even the two parties involved in the battle could not help but look at Yun Luofeng. She fell asleep? How could she fall asleep under such circumstances? They really did not know whether to call her lazy or careless. Soon, the people from the Big Dipper Gang and the Sky Martial Court retracted their gazes and continued to fight. Murong Bei was a little worried about Yun Luofeng. He sent a few disciples from the Big Dipper Gang to protect her. However, they were stopped by Lin Ruobai when they approached Yun Luofeng. Don't disturb my master's rest. Even if she's asleep, you can't hurt her. Her master was protected by Milk Tea. She had even seen Milk Tea fight with other spiritual beasts with her own eyes. Although that little thing looked small and weak, it was actually more ferocious than anyone else. Touching Yun Luofeng under its protection? Wasn't that the same as seeking death? As Lin Ruobai was Yun Luofeng's disciple, the gang members trusted her words. They did not go to Yun Luofeng's side to protect her. Instead, they continued to fight. In reality, Yun Luofeng was not asleep. She had only let her soul enter the divine grimoire space. In the eyes of outsiders, it looked like she was sleeping. Under the dark blue sky, little Mo saw Yun Luofeng at first glance and happily pounced towards her. Master, why are you here? I'm here to see how the cultivation of the seed is going. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a faint smile. Her pitch-black eyes gradually landed on the herb field in front of her. Little Mo, what's the origin of this seed? Why do you want me to take it? This. Little Mo frowned. I've been away from this continent for a long time. Even if I return, the information in my mind is incomplete. To be honest, I don't know what it is. I'll only understand its function after it is cultivated. How long will it take to nurture it? I'm not sure. Little Mo shook her head. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't know the specifics. Master, I believe that as long as we wait patiently, he will definitely be nurtured. Little Mo's eyes lit up. When Little Mo saw the seed at the auction, she had a feeling that she had to get her hands on it. Otherwise, he would definitely regret it in the future. This was also why he had allowed Yun Luofeng to obtain the seed that day. Little Mo, if there are any changes to the seed, you must inform me. I still have something to do, so I'll leave the grimoire space first. Hearing the girl's words, Little Mo's eyes were filled with reluctance. Master, it's not easy for you to come here. Why don't you stay a little longer? Seeing the reluctance on Little Mo's face, Yun Luofeng said with a faint smile, If you can't bear to part with me, why don't you come with me to the outside world for a few hours? Forget it. Little Mo shuddered and laughed awkwardly. That little witch is too violent. I'd better stay away from her in case she beats me up one day. Chapter 594. Yun Luofeng smirked. He took one last look at Little Mo and decided to leave the divine grimoire space. At that moment, Tang Rant's expression turned ugly. He never thought that Murong Bei, who had just broken through to the intermediate heavenly spirit warrior, would be able to fight against him. It seemed that Murong Bei's reputation had spread far and wide for a reason. Bang! Tang Ran forced Murong Bei to take a few steps back and signaled the person beside him with his eyes. That person understood Tang Rant's meaning. He immediately put down the opponent in front of him and rushed toward Yun Luofeng. There was a vicious glint in his eyes and the dagger in his hand emitted a cold glint. All he needed to do was to draw a gentle stroke and the sleeping young lady would bleed on the spot. Sect leader! Murong Bei shouted in shock when he saw the actions of the people from the Sky Martial Court. He wanted to use this opportunity to wake Yun Luofeng up. Unfortunately, the young lady's eyes were still closed as if she did not notice what was happening outside. Lin Ruobai wasn't anxious at all. She looked at the man with pity in her eyes and spat out a few words, "Idiot." That person had just rushed in front of Yun Luofeng, but before he could make a move, a little hamster crawled out of her sleeve. It placed its hands on its waist and squealed at that person. Squeak squeak. However, that person did not stop. His dagger accurately slashed toward Yun Luofeng's neck. His actions had completely angered Milk Tea. Squeak squeak. Milk Tea squeaked angrily and jumped onto the back of that person's hand. She opened her mouth and bit down. Its teeth were sharp and it bit into the bone. The person's hand trembled in pain and the dagger fell from his hand. Damn gold-seeking rat. He flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped the gold-seeking rat. Unfortunately, the gold-seeking rat was extremely fast and dodged his palm in an instant. It then opened its mouth and bit his thigh. Along the way to Netherworld City, they had encountered many spiritual beasts. Milk Tea had always dealt with those ferocious spiritual beasts. However, Milk Tea did not kill them immediately. Instead, she played with them like a cat with a mouse. Only when the spiritual beasts were exhausted would it make a move to deal with them. Now, seeing the battle between the people of the Sky Martial Pavilion and Milk Tea, Lin Ruabai could not help but think of the spirit beasts that had died tragically. The sympathy in his eyes deepened. Why did he have to provoke Milk Tea of all people? This little hamster's temper was worse than anyone else's. Provoking it was equivalent to provoking a demon. Useless thing. When Tang Ran saw that his subordinate couldn't even deal with a gold-seeking mouse, his face couldn't help but sink, and he signaled another person nearby with his eyes. You go deal with it. Yes, pavilion leader. The disciple quickly stepped forward and raised his sword high, about to slash at Yun Luofeng. When Milk Tea turned around and saw this scene, she was completely enraged. With a squeak, it directly pierced through the body of the man just now. That's right, it didn't even bother to bend and directly pass through the other party's body. That person didn't even have the chance to resist. A bloody hole appeared in his chest, and his body fell straight down. As for the Sky Martial Pavilion disciple standing in front of Yun Luofeng, he did not seem to sense the approaching danger. The corner of his lips curled into a mocking smile, and he raised his sword high and was about to slash down. As long as this slash landed, the beautiful head of the young girl in front of him would fall off. From then on, there would no longer be a Yun Luofeng in this world. Chapter 595. Those who offend the Sky Martial Court shall die. Swoosh. The long sword quickly descended, and was about to slash at Yun Luofeng's head. However, at this moment, a sharp pain came from his chest, and his hand suddenly froze in the air. He lowered his head in disbelief and stared at the bloody hole in his chest. His eyes widened in disbelief. At the same time, the girl who had kept her eyes closed finally opened her eyes. Boom! The man's body collapsed heavily in front of her. Fresh blood flowed all over the ground and seeped into the ground. Squeak squeak. Milk Tea squeaked angrily. It had lost interest in playing around with these people. It was a one-hit kill. Suddenly, it saw that Yun Luofeng had woken up and rushed into her arms. It cupped its paws and squeaked as if it was trying to please her. It was asking for praise. Well done. Yun Luofeng patted Milk Tea's head generously. Milk Tea excitedly jumped up. She stuck out her tongue and licked Yun Luofeng's face. With a whoosh, she burrowed into her sleeve. Master, I want to go out and kill this stinky hamster. Little Mo was furious. It dared to molest Master. I'm going to kill it and eat its meat. Yun Luofeng calmed Little Mo down. Then, she looked at the two parties fighting in the square. Forget about the people from the Sky Martial Court. Even the members of the Big Dipper Gang were shocked by Milk Tea's methods. To the members of the Big Dipper Gang, the gold-seeking hamster was just Yun Luofeng's pet. Some of them had even teased it when they were bored. However, Milk Tea did not show any signs of fighting back then. No one would have thought that this harmless little hamster would have such a powerful strength. Some of the people who had teased it shuddered in fear. If they had known that it was so powerful, they would not have dared to tease it. Tang Ran narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes and his lips curled into a greedy smile. How good would it be if this gold-seeking hamster belonged to him? Tang Ran, things that are not yours will never be yours. Murong Bei could see through the greed in Tang Ran's eyes. He sneered and mocked him. Tang Ran sneered, that might not be the case. All the treasures in this world belonged to the capable. Even if she had this gold-seeking rat now, it did not mean that she would have it forever. A spiritual beast like this would only be able to display its full potential in the hands of a capable person. In her hands, it's no different from chicken ribs. In other words, only he was worthy of a spirit beast like the gold-seeking rat. It seems like everyone in the Sky Martial Pavilion is thick-skinned to a certain extent. No one can compare to you. Murong Bei's face was filled with a sarcastic smile. Unfortunately, you're destined to fail. Boom. Murong Bei swung the iron chain in his hand again and charged at Tang Ranxi at high speed. As his chain streaked across the sky, it brought with it a burst of flames, forcing Tang Ran to retreat. He didn't dare to take his attack head-on, Murong Bei. Just then, a young girl's languid voice rang out from behind Murong Bei. I asked you to end this quickly. Why did you drag it out until now? Murong Bei stopped his attack and turned to look at Yun Luofeng. His face was filled with embarrassment. Leader, it's my fault. Forget it, you can leave first. Yun Luofeng's gaze slowly shifted to Tang Ran. It's getting late, I don't want to stay here for too long. So, immediately go to the back and count to 10. Chapter 596. Huh. Murong Bei was stunned. Like a confused monk, he asked in confusion, why do I have to count? Because, by the time you count to 10, this battle should be over. What was arrogance? What was arrogance? Perhaps no one in the entire square had experienced such a cleansing like today. Yun Luofeng did not seem to notice the mocking gazes around him. He raised his eyebrows and said confidently, let's start. Don't waste time. Tang Ran's face contorted. He charged at Yun Luofeng like a bolt of lightning. Soul attack. Boom. Just as Tang Ran arrived in front of Yun Luofeng, he felt a heavy blow to his soul before he could even hurt her. Then he was momentarily dazed. It was also at this moment that a long sword pierced his body. With a squelch, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground in a sorry state. How many have you counted to? Yun Luofeng looked at Murong Bei calmly and asked. Murong Bei was still in shock. He had not regained his senses yet. Now that he heard Yun Luofeng's words, he immediately regained his senses and said embarrassedly, I haven't started counting. In other words, it was over before he had even started counting. He did not give anyone a chance to react at all. At that moment, Murong Bei finally understood that it was not an injustice that he had lost to Yun Luofeng that day. Grandfather! Suddenly, a shrill voice rang out, resounding throughout the entire square. Tang Yu hugged Tang Ran's bloodied body tightly and glared at Yun Luofeng angrily. Yun Luofeng, you killed my grandfather. I'll make you pay with your life. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. He's not dead yet. I only destroyed his dantian with that sword. I killed him because I wanted him to witness the destruction of the Sky Martial Pavilion. Yun Luofeng. Tang Yu clenched her fists tightly and trembled. Do you know what a dantian means to a martial artist? First, you destroyed my cousin's hand, then my grandfather's dantian. What right do you have to covet the position of the Chen family's mistress? The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone's gaze towards Yun Luofeng had already changed from the initial shock to disdain. No matter how strong this young lady was, she did not have the qualifications to become the matriarch of the Chen family. In the end, she even dared to covet the position of the Cheng family's matriarch? Let me take a look at your grandfather's body. Then an old voice came from outside the crowd. Just as everyone turned to look, they saw Chen Tian slowly walking towards them. He walked up to Tang Yu's side and placed his finger gently on Tang Ran's pulse. As he sensed the condition of Tang Ran's body, Chen Tian's frown deepened. Your dantian has indeed been destroyed. Your grandfather will probably never be able to cultivate again. Boom. Like a bolt from the blue, Tang Yu was dumbfounded. She stared at Tang Ran in disbelief. Grandpa would never be able to cultivate again? The guardian of the Sky Martial Pavilion had already become trash? How could she bear such a blow? No! Tang Yu hugged her head tightly and knelt on the ground in tears. She screamed shrilly and turned to look at Yun Luofeng. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with madness. Yun Luofeng, I want you to pay with your life for my grandfather's. Her voice was filled with hatred as she spoke fiercely. Chapter 597. If you had the ability to make me pay with my life, that would be possible. Unfortunately, you don't have the ability to do so. Yun Luofeng's lips curled as he glanced at Tang Yu. Also, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be thrown away after being used by others. Tang Yu laughed coldly. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by being used by others? Are you talking about my cousin? Looks like it's really as cousin said before, you really like to put the blame on others. Even though Tang Yu hated Tang Tianyu's actions the day before, he was still her cousin. How could she allow any woman to speak ill of her cousin in front of her? Yun Luofeng. Chen Tian slowly stood up and stared at Yun Luofeng coldly. Little Yu is right. You must pay with your life for the sake of the Sky Martial Pavilion. Even if the Sky Martial Pavilion cannot deal with you, I can still do it for them. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. I heard that in Yellow Spring City, when two forces fight, other forces cannot interfere. It's not worth it. Why are you standing against me? That's right. When two forces fight, other forces cannot interfere. However, Tang Yu is my disciple. Since that's the case, I cannot ignore the Sky Martial Pavilion's matters. A murderous aura emanated from his body. Furthermore, even without the Sky Martial Pavilion's matters, I would not let you live. Don't think that I don't know how you seduced the master and caused him to do something unspeakable with you in the forest. How could a filthy woman like you tarnish the master's innocence? Someone from the Chen family? Yun Luofeng's voice deepened and his expression darkened. Does Qin Yuqing not know about your actions here? How dare you? Who allowed you to call the master by his name? Don't think that just because you used underhanded means to get into the master's bed that you can look down on the Chen family. As long as I am alive, don't even think about taking a single step into the Chen family's door. Chen Tian shouted, his eyes filled with coldness. Everyone in the plaza sighed. Their gazes towards Yun Luofeng changed from disdain to anger. It would have been fine if she had only wanted to seduce the Chen family head. After all, in their hearts, the Chen family head was so perfect that it was impossible for him to be seduced. But now, this woman actually dared to climb into the Chen family's patriarch's bed. How could they not be furious? What a shameless bitch. How can a perfect person like Patriarch Chen be tarnished by her? That's right, I feel disgusted when her hand touches the Chen family's patriarch. How could Patriarch Chen be tempted by her? The Chen family patriarch is mine. Anyone who touches Patriarch Chen's woman deserves to die. Murong Bei's eyes were filled with anger when he heard the crowd's mockery. He had wanted to defend Yun Luofeng, but he knew that no one would believe him even if he did. Therefore, he could only swallow all the words he wanted to say as his sharp gaze swept across the crowd. If anyone dares to insult the sect leader again, I'll kill him. Our Big Dipper gang will fight him to the death. Murong Bei's voice was very domineering. When it entered the crowd, everyone's discussion quieted down. After all, the people who had come to the plaza to watch the battle were only from the lower-ranked factions of the Yellow Springs gang. As for those who were ranked in the top 10, they would definitely be hiding somewhere to watch the battle. They would definitely not be standing in the plaza with the others. Chapter 598. Murong Beifong turned towards Yun Luofeng when he saw that everyone had shut their mouths. His eyes were filled with anxiety. I seduced Qin Yuqing? She laughed involuntarily. Even if I did seduce him, it would still be better than Tang Yu's illicit relationship with her cousin. Tang Yu's expression changed drastically as she stared at Yun Luofeng in horror. How? How did she know? Yun Luofeng, don't you dare spout nonsense. Chen Tian scoffed coldly. Yuer is different from you. She's more conservative. She would never do anything immoral before marriage. It's one thing for you to have a child before marriage, but don't think that everyone is as shameless as you. Yun Luofeng glanced at Chen Tian before she walked towards Tang Ran, who was lying on the ground. She gripped the hilt of her sword tightly and pulled it out. Tang Ran grunted in pain as her face turned even paler. What are you doing? Tang Yu stumbled back in fear when she saw Yun Luofeng pulling out his sword and walking towards her. Master, save me. Yun Luofeng, stop. Hand. Before she could finish her last word, Yun Luofeng swung the long sword in his hand through the wind, and a ray of sword light rushed towards Tang Yu's arm. In an instant, her sleeve was cut off, revealing her white arm. Her arm was as white as a lotus root and was flawless. Chen Tian was about to lose his temper, but he froze when he saw Tang Yu's snow-white arm. His eyes widened in shock. "You wear your virginity mark." Whoosh! Tang Yu's face turned pale as large beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. She bit her lip, feeling so ashamed and resentful that she wanted to find a hole and hide in it. At that moment, all her unbearable state was exposed to the crowd. She could not help but recall the crazy scene from the previous night. "It's you." Suddenly, Tang Yu regained her senses and threw herself at Yun Luofeng like a madwoman. "How did you know about what happened between me and my cousin? Were you the one who had drugged us with the aphrodisiac?" Her words indirectly proved the relationship between her and Tang Tianyu. Before Tang Yu could reach Yun Luofeng, she was sent flying with a kick. Then her entire body fell to the ground in a sorry state. She held her stomach, sweating profusely from the pain. "Yun Luofeng, you vicious woman. Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you off." Her voice was shrill and hoarse, like the wail of a ghost and the howl of a wolf, causing one's hair to stand on end. If it was in the past, Chen Tian would definitely rush over to help Tang Yu up and comfort her. However, this time, he did nothing, and his eyes were filled with disappointment. You actually slept with your cousin and lost your purity, yet you still want to be the mistress of the Qin family?" The crowd was in an uproar again. It turned out that Tang Yu had always regarded Qin Yuqing as her target. However, she was a woman who had lost her innocence. What right did she have to manage the Qin family? "Master, it's not like that. It's Yun Luofeng, she gave me an aphrodisiac. It's really not what you think." Tang Yu scrambled over to Chen Tian and tugged at his robes. "I'm innocent. You have to believe me." Chen Tian shook his head. "No matter what your reasons are, losing your purity is unforgivable. I'm already giving you face as my disciple by not killing you. However, you're no longer worthy of the master." Even though he hoped that his disciple would become the mistress of the Chen family, he did not want the Chen family to pick up a used shoe. If word of this got out, they would become the laughingstock of the world. Chapter 599. Tang Yu's body slumped to the ground. She knew that she would never have Qin Yuqing again in this lifetime. However, even if she couldn't have him, Yun Luofeng couldn't either. "Master, no matter how dirty my body is, my heart is still clean, unlike Yun Luofeng. Not only is his body dirty, but even his heart is dirty." Master Qin must have been blind to have fallen for her seduction. Now, whenever Tang Yu thought about what they had done in the cherry blossom forest that day, she felt as if ants were gnawing at her heart. The pain was unbearable. Chen Tian's expression changed. No matter how Tang Yu humiliated Yun Luofeng, it didn't matter. However, she had blurted out that the master was blind. If the master heard this, before he could think of a solution, a voice suddenly rang out. In an instant, he felt as if he had fallen into an endless hell. "I'm sorry, my eyes are normal. That's why I chased you away when you tried to seduce me that day." The man's voice was as gentle as ever. His gaze was cold and indifferent as he slowly walked towards her. He was so handsome that he looked like a celestial being from a painting. Every single move he made was filled with temptation. Tang Yu's gaze slowly fell on the man, her eyes filled with infatuation. Even though this man had been so heartless, her heart still hung on him. "Are you all right?" The man didn't even look at Tang Yu. He slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng and asked in a concerned tone. Yun Luofeng laughed icily. "I told the Chen family not to interfere in this matter." In the end, the Chen family still made a move and protected the Sky Martial Court. The man frowned slightly. "It's my fault for not disciplining her properly. I will definitely give you an explanation for this." The entire plaza fell silent because of the man's arrival. No one thought that Yun Luofeng would treat Qin Yuqing so rudely. Yet, Qin Yuqing still allowed him to do as he pleased. What was so good about this woman that the master of the Qin family would treat her this way? "Master!" Chen Tian's heart was filled with rage. I don't know what kind of drug Yun Luofeng gave you to make you allow her to do as she pleases. However, this old man asks Patriarch to consider the Qin family and wake up as soon as possible. Don't fall into this woman's trap. Chen Yuqing glanced at Chen Tian indifferently. Chindan, do you know what I hate the most? Chen Tian's heart suddenly trembled. Of course, he knew that the Patriarch hated people from the Qin family the most. But, Master, I'm advising you for your own good. Have you forgotten what happened in the past? The previous Patriarch didn't listen to everyone's advice and left that woman in the Qin family, almost causing the Qin family to fall into ruin. Chen Yuqing pondered for a while and said, She is different from that woman. What's the difference? She was not a good person at all. Who knows how many men she has seduced outside? Even the child is angry at her, but she still wants to seduce the clan head. That day, you even did that kind of thing in the small forest. As a member of the Qin family, how could I allow the family head to step onto the wrong path again? Faced with Chen Tian's accusations, Yun Luofeng crossed his arms in front of his chest. His lips curled into an evil smile as he leaned lazily against the tree behind him. His eyes were filled with amusement. Chen Yuqing's eyes grew colder and colder. She asked icily, I don't know, what did she and I do in the small forest?